Good evening. Opening the Town of Holliston Planning Board meeting for Thursday, July 16th, 2020. And first I need to read a quick paragraph or two. Pursuant to the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A, paragraph 20, as well as the Planning Selectmen Board emergency order dated 3/16/2020. The Planning Board will be using remote participation for this meeting. The audio of this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the town's website within 24 hours in accordance with the governor's emergency action requirements, keeping the public informed of actions during this meeting. I would ask that all participants remotely attending this meeting please state your name for identification purposes each time you speak throughout the meeting. At this time, a roll call of attendance will be taken for the board members. I'll start by I, David Thorne.
Josh Santoro.
Karen?
Karen Apuzzo-Langton.
Jason Santos.
Okay, Scott's here, I think. Is Scott there, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Scott's there. I see him up there. Scott, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Scott from the Board of Health.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, okay.
No, not you, Scott.
Yeah, okay. The other board member is Scott there?
Scott Ferkler.
Scott Ferkler there? Okay. Well, anyway, I think he's there. I think I see him there. But
No doubt that's him.
at this point,
Handsome fella.
it is after 7 o'clock, and we're going to open the public hearing for Odessa auction, Boston, 0 and 194 Lowland Street. And I believe.
You don't want to do the general business first?
I do want, okay. Okay. Well, maybe what we'll do is just to do a quick, there's a couple of different things. Before we start that, if we could, we're just going to go through a couple of quick things first up. First would be the approval of minutes, which would be June 11th and the 24th of 2020. I don't know if anybody wants to look at those or if anybody has any questions.
No.
Or if somebody would like to make a motion to that effect.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from July 16th, 2020.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Jason Santos, second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Can you just take 1 second to have Scott unmute himself? Somehow we don't have audio.
Okay. Can Scott unmute himself?
Yeah. Which Scott are you talking about?
Scott Ferkler.
Scott Ferkler.
We're not getting sound.
We're not getting sound.
Scott.
Can you hear us? Can Scott Ferkler hear us?
Can someone type in the message thing to him?
We're not.
Yeah.
For some reason.
I'll let.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you've seconded it, and all in favor. I guess we'll start. I'm sorry.
I said aye, yes.
You said yes. Okay. And then I guess no. I don't know if we've got is Scott all set. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm good to go.
Okay. Oh, okay, great. Okay. Well, I guess it's the other four board members, because this is the June 11th meeting. June 11th.
June?
June 11th, yeah.
July.
We're talking about July. Oh, we're talking about June 11th and 24th, right? Yeah, June 11th and 24th. The two.
The minute?
Oh, yeah, that's actually that's for the
Minutes.
Yeah, here, I'll give you this. Here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we've got a second, and all in favor. I guess we'll start with Karen.
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Okay. And you said aye before, okay. So I guess we'll go to June 24th. Does anybody have any questions or concerns in regards to the minutes?
No.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to that effect?
Motion to approve the minutes from June 24th.
Okay, that's Jason. Do I have a second? To approve the
Second.
minutes from?
Second.
Okay, Karen, second, okay. All in favor, starting with Karen?
Aye.
Okay, Scott?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Okay, all right. And approvals not required subdivisions?
There are none.
There are none, okay. And next, we'll go to the reorganization. And then we have one more thing before we'll go into our public hearing. So at this point, we can, there's open discussions for, as we've discussed, for how we want to go forward for the next year, planning board. I don't know if there's any comments. If we want to keep it the way it is, that would be one way. But
I mean, I know I've talked with a few of you. I'm fine the way it is. I certainly do not want, nor do I have, the time right now to take on anything more than what I'm doing. So I'm good with, I guess what I'm saying is I'm good with the way things are, but.
okay. Okay. All right.
I can second that.
Would somebody like to make a motion, or do we want more discussion? All right. Would somebody, at this point, would somebody like to make a motion to that?
Make a motion to keep the planning board arrangement as set.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right.
Do you just want to clarify that?
Clarified, okay. My David Thorne as the chairman, Karen as the vice chairman, and then we had two other positions.
Which I think we're,
Josh Santoro as the clerk
The clerk
Thank you, Josh.
an agent.
and agent.
and agent.
Thank you again, Josh.
You're very welcome.
Okay. So I get this, at this point,
We are waiting for Scott and Karen.
okay. So I guess we'll go through and all in favor, I guess, or
Aye.
somebody second, okay. Scott?
Aye.
Okay, Karen?
Aye.
All right, Jason?
Aye.
Okay, all right. And then I guess the only other thing we wanted to talk about was 45 Chestnut Street, Boston Honey Company, BHC Ventures LLC, site plan and bonding.
You're looking for Andy Reseska?
Is Andy here? Andy Reseska?
If he's not, I can just quickly run through.
Is somebody here from,
From the Boston Honey Company?
okay,
Sure as hell was here last week.
You have a letter from July 9th from Mr. Reseska from Boston Honey Company. He's describing to you what his process has been in terms of developing the site. So this is the site on Chestnut Street before you cross the rail trail. It's a post and beam building. It's both processing and for retail for the Boston Honey products. He is looking to get occupancy and is looking to exercise the provision of the zoning bylaw that allows Chris to grant occupancy if items that are remaining are bonded. So GLM has weighed in as his project engineer. They've sort of verified his remaining line items and the value of those line items, including their own as-built plan. And the number that they're providing is $18,630. He would do this in a performance bond for the town. You may just want to, and Chris will do the same, we'll give a short period of time. He's not really offering that, but he's, explaining to you that this is primarily his financial situation in terms of financing the project through SBA. And he is doing most of this work by himself at this point. So Chris is okay with the building stuff. I'm not sure, Scott was waiting for the as-built of the septic plan, but I believe he's ready to go to temporary occupancy at this point, and is looking for you to approve this. And it's your jurisdiction, not Chris's, because it's under the site plan review section of the bylaw.
Okay.
Yes, if he was here.
Okay.
But yes, if he was here.
So this first would be it's essentially the bond is going to, so it's all.
Could I please ask a question? Could I please ask a question?
Oh, Aaron, sure.
Does this mean then that all business practice will then consolidate over to 45 Chestnut Street? Or will this person still be working at two locations?
I think he intends to consolidate, is my understanding, but I'm not entirely sure about that, but I believe so.
Okay.
The applicant's not on with us tonight.
He doesn't seem to be. He jumped in last time when he wasn't on the agenda, and has since sort of offered this letter dated July 9th, but.
Yeah, Karen, didn't he reach out to you concerned that he wasn't on the agenda for this meeting?
Exactly, yeah. And then he provided the documentation that we were looking for.
So.
It's tough to have questions answered if he's not on the meeting.
Well, I'm not sure that Karen's question had to do with his bonding. I think more is operation. She's looking to understand his operations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what hours? Do we even set hours? We must have.
I'm sorry?
We must have set hours and everything, right?
Hours of
Operation?
For the 45 Chestnut facility?
Yeah.
I think so.
Definitely.
We did.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we said, yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. It's been a while.
And he's got a parking lot, right? Is the parking lot done?
No.
Parking
I mean,
lot.
that might be an issue.
Well, he's not looking to occupy he's not looking to open the business. He's looking to occupy so that he can move everything in and get up and running.
Oh, okay.
And yeah,
But he's looking to finish within
Okay.
like 90 days.
I can make a motion to approve that.
Okay.
So, Karen, did you have some more questions?
No, I was just wondering about that. There's, been some conversation around the business owner finishing up at their current location, and I just wondered if there was
Okay.
an end date on that. So, but we don't know.
I'm ready.
Well, that's answered my question.
Yeah. Jason, I don't know if you had any questions?
No, I
Nope.
thought I was on mute,
Okay.
but I'm not. No, I'm all right. I'm all right. I wish he would have been present for some random questions that I seem to come up with every now and then, but that's okay.
Correct.
And Scott? I don't know. if
I
you have any
am
questions.
all set. No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, so at this point, is it two separate votes or one, just
I would just do one vote.
one for the site plan and bonding, or for just what you discussed? Okay. So if somebody would like to make a motion.
How much is the bond worth? I'm sorry.
18,630.
Okay. I make a motion
To that effect?
to allow occupancy for 465 Chestnut Street,
45.
for 45 Chestnut Street. And I allow the bonding of
18,630.
18,630.
All right. Okay. Do I have a second?
Jason Santos, second.
Okay. All in favor? I guess I'll start with Karen.
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So we're all, okay. All right. Okay. I guess next, moving on to the public hearing for Desa, 194 Lowland Street. And what we'd like to do is have Mr. Barberi is going to, I believe, give us a presentation or talk to us. And if there's anybody who in the audience who, if you could just hold off, and we will talk to the board members and their questions and so forth after, and then we'll open it up to, and if I could ask again,
No shouting out.
we'll just state your name, and I have something to read about people that are on their cell phones once we get to that point, because they're going to have to do, they've changed, Zoom has changed things, but at this point, if Peter would like to present to us, we'll open up the public hearing.
Okay, I'm assuming you can hear me.
All right.
For the record, Peter Barberi on behalf of Odessa, Boston. Odessa in late 1994 acquired the old General Motors facility in Framingham, has been conducting their operations over there ever since. The last year to two, there have been occasions where they have simply run out of space from the viewpoint of storage of vehicles for the auction facility. So they have been looking for at least a year for other locations, off-site locations from viewpoint of storing cars, so that when there's an overflow, they have a facility to do that. They are under agreement with the owner of the Lowland Street property, and that's the reason we're before you tonight for the special permit for the storage of automobiles outside, as well as site plan, because we're certainly enlarging the parking area, which there really isn't a paved area in any event. So permit-wise, we need a special permit as well as site plan review. So the plan we have presented to you, we think is certainly an improvement over what you see out on the site tonight or today. The buildings on the site, which are in a state of repair and have been that way for decades, would be completely removed. The berm, which is presently out there, which is overgrown, would be used but maintained and planted, and we submitted a planting plan of that. One of the areas that provides access to the site now would be closed up. In the plan, if you can pull up the plan, we can go through it, but the plan is to have two access points to the site. The site would be totally secured. There would be a guard shack for a guard on the site basically at all times. So looking at the plan, there's a small area, as you can see to the left, but again, all access is through the two drives. The existing berm area would be maintained, so there would be a 30-foot wide buffer raised berm, which would be vegetated and maintained from the street, and that berm would be extended. And you can see the landscaping plan later on, but that would be extended basically to the edge of the parking lot on the right-hand side. So the entire parking area would, all intent and purposes, be screened from the roadway, which of course would be below the 20 to 25 foot high berm that would be out there, and there would be landscaping. From the viewpoint of the property itself, the property is about 43 acres. A lot of it's wetlands, a lot of it's floodplain. It leaves about 6 acres for development purposes. You can see the large dashed area. That's basically the buffer line, and we've met the Conservation Commission setbacks in the nature of the no disturbance zones. Certainly there's no building with any buffer zone, because again, the only building we've got is the 20 foot by 8 foot guard check right when you come in. So we meet all the Conservation Commission guidelines in the nature of setbacks. All the piles that are on the site that, of course, within the areas of the proposed parking would be removed and trucked off site. So what you'd end up with is a landscape site visible from the street, no visibility of cars. The package includes a lighting plan. If you're looking at that plan, you can see the location of the lighting. There would be there's a foot candle map that's part of the package as well, which depicts no spillover onto adjoining properties. You can see from this plan, the parking area on the right-hand side of the plan is well short of the stream and everything else. There's a couple hundred feet to the property line to the right. The parking lot, the small area on the left, that parking lot, that's within, I think, 30 feet of that. I guess it would be northerly property bound, but that's a wooded area and vegetated and wetland area as well. So there's no buffers, there's no abutters that we have proximity to in the nature of this plan. That's generally it. We think it would be a cleanup of the site. It would be make use of the site, which of course really hasn't been for decades. It'll clean up the deteriorated buildings and overgrown landscape on the site. So simply the parking of vehicles on the site would not end up in emissions or anything in the nature of the environment. Brian Brewer is the engineer. He can talk about if you have questions about further details on the landscaping, and talk about that and the berming and how we're going to clean that up. And he can also talk about the drainage system as well. This plan, and we've got to change it, does not depict lighting for that small parking area on the left. So we will be presenting you before your next meeting, because we have to wait because you have not got comment back from your consultant. We will give you a revised lighting plan for the lighting on the left-hand side. That small area, there's, I think, about 23 parking spaces on that left-hand little rectangular area. So we'll give you a lighting plan of that. We follow the same standard of no overflow of lighting onto the street or to the abutting property. Generally, that's the overview of it. And again, Brian can talk about the drainage and other aspects of it, but basically it's a full cleaning up on the site from the viewpoint of traffic to and from the site. Once it gets in operation, we're probably figuring between 8 and 10 truck carriers a day. Truck carriers ranging from 2 probably up to the 8. In most instances, there'll be the smaller, probably 3 and 4 range vehicles. And of course, they would use the trucking route in and out of the park, and that certainly can be a condition of the board's approval. So I'll let Brian Brewer, who's the engineer, kind of go over the drainage aspects of the plan.
Right. Thanks, Peter. Good evening. This is Brian Brewer with Kimley Horn, the civil engineer for the project. The site, as we propose now, we're going to have curbing all along the perimeter of the parking area to contain the stormwater that's being generated from the new parking lot. The current drainage patterns of the lot today, a portion of it goes to the north to the existing pond, and a large section of it actually goes south towards the brook. And so we're trying to maintain those existing drainage patterns, at least for the outfall locations, to be consistent with the existing conditions. So the parking area, again, will be curb perimeter and graded to a series of drop inlets, so deep sump catch basins in the parking area that will then actually discharge into 2 underground stormwater detention systems. They're there on site. You can see here on this graphic, it's on the screen, pretty large systems that will also have a pre-treatment system before that. So hydrodynamic separators to treat the stormwater before it enters into the underground systems, where they're sized and designed to be able to infiltrate as much as possible. Then any overflow goes into the North Pond or south to the brook. So considering what's out there right now with no stormwater treatment on site, definitely feel like this is an upgrade even with the proposed development plan.
Karen, if you can pull up the next to last plan, that's the landscaping plan. You can see the landscaping that's proposed along the front buffer. And again, that buffer is 30 feet wide. And again, there'll be that significant and high berm so that you won't see the cars but for looking through where the driveways are.
Correct. So that's the berm that's there now. Okay.
Correct. And I'm sorry, this is Brian Brewer again. With the hatching that's shown on the screen that looks kind of like a honeycomb, it says existing trees to remain. The intent in those areas is those are the areas where the berms are today, and there is obviously thick vegetation and thick screening. The intent there is to clean that area up, keep the native trees, the good specimens that are out there, and supplement if needed. Once we clean out those vines in the area that's overgrown right now, anything that would be needed to continue to screen it. But the berm right now provides a nice screen to the area as long as the area is cleaned up, we understand. And the areas that are currently open that don't have the berm or any of that vegetation is where we had shown a series of trees and shrubs that are shown here on this plan, a series of oaks, maples, and pines to again provide that screening.
All right.
So that's the overview. We'll certainly answer any questions you may have. Again, you haven't gotten back comments from your consultant, so we're going to have to continue the hearing to go and give you the revised lighting plan and to see what comments that they have. We have also now filed a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission. I don't know exactly when that hearing is going to be. They meet next week. It'll probably be the meeting 2 weeks after that. So that's the rough timing on that.
Oh, yeah, real rough.
All right. Scott, did you have any questions? Or that you wanted to ask them?
Yeah, why do they want to drain into the pond?
Yeah, I guess my concern is with the truck routes. There's a couple of schools over in that area. There's the crossing for the rail trail. I guess just what routes would the trucks be taking to and from Odessa?
There's a truck route that comes in off of 16 up, I forget the name of the street, but it's the first major entry coming from Sherburne. That I understand is the industrial truck route, not to come down Lowland Street and to make that, not Lowland Street, what's the street that the school's on? I can't think.
Yeah, there's like Jeffrey Ave over there, which is a pretty direct
because that left-hand turn coming from 16 is not the route.
I think what Scott's trying to say, Peter, is that we all know that there's like an industrial truck route. What's Odessa going to do about maintaining that industrial truck route? That's like the big elephant question.
Most of what happens from the viewpoint of operations, these are vehicles that are typically brought to the Odessa facility and then brought from the Odessa facility to here. These aren't cars coming from
They're not coming off the highway. They're not coming through the center of town, past the schools. Right. It's mostly, is it going to operate as like a satellite yard of Odessa? It's going to come to Odessa and then from Odessa to this satellite yard?
Right. That's pretty much it. In the deliveries will be during normal business hours, not nights and all that type of stuff. And again, since they're coming from the Odessa facility, the vast majority of them will be Odessa trucks themselves. So we will have control over the trucking.
Okay.
All right. Karen, did you have some questions?
Actually, if we could back up a little bit.
Sure.
And that is, from as I understand and as I read your site plan application, how many auctions happen a week? How many cars move through in an auction? I have questions about the general flow of how things work more than getting into the details at this moment. So, Mr. Barbieri, if you could run through how this actually operates, that would be really helpful.
Sure. Again, typically what will happen is that the cars for auction will be brought to the Odessa facility. At that point, they're logged in, they're all coded. If there is need for overflow, then they would be taken, again, by Odessa vehicles to this site, stored on this site for typically around a 2-week period until they're ready to auction. Then they would be brought back to the auction, sold from the auction, and transported by the person who purchased.
Okay, so typically how many cars are sold at an auction?
I'm sorry?
Typically how many cars are sold per auction?
From the viewpoint of the entire Odessa facility, there's probably at least 6,000, potentially 5,000 to 6,000.
Per each auction?
Yeah.
Okay.
Part of that property is in Sherburne, so we have approval from Sherburne for the use of, I think it's 14 acres in Sherburne, in addition to the acreage in Framingham.
Okay.
Again, over the last couple of years, there have been need for an overflow parking lot.
No, yes, I understand. And then how do potential buyers view the vehicle?
What was that question?
How do buyers view the vehicles? Online, in person, how do they view them before they buy them?
They view them, well, let me stop you. Right now, because of what's going on, all the auctions are taking place by web. In that, there's no plan right now for the near future to change that. Normal operations before the pandemic is that the Odessa facility in Framingham, I think, has 14 or 15 bays where vehicles, where people looking to buy, which are dealers and licensed dealers to be part of the Odessa operations, vehicles are brought in front of one of the bays. If you want to go out there, it's a great experience to do. If you ever watch the Meckham Auto auctions or any other type of auction, you have an auctioneer, they bring out the car, they auction it off, they describe the car briefly, and they auction it in the dealer's bid. The cars will be brought over there before the immediate day of sale, so dealers would have the right to use the main parking in front of the Odessa facility where the auction bays are to view the cars there, as well as they view the cars when the actual car is up for auction. There wouldn't be any viewing of the cars at the Holliston facility.
Thank you.
All right. Jason, did you have any questions?
Karen, was that it?
According to your write-up, there will be one guard that will be there.
Correct.
The hours of the guard, would that be 24/7? Is that going to be, what are the hours?
That would likely be 24/7.
So at 24/7, I imagine you're doing probably 8-hour shifts or something like that. Would that be reasonable?
Yeah.
So there's no bathroom, right?
Did they what?
I didn't see anywhere in the plans anywhere for a bathroom.
There's got to be a portable toilet associated with it.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, Karen, I thought you were done before. I apologize.
That's all right.
I'm sorry.
And
I'm
so
sorry.
that's okay. And Peter, you had said that the vehicles will be coming over on Odessa transport trucks.
Mhm.
Those would be going between regular business hours, so this guard would never be expecting a late shipment of cars.
That should not happen, no.
So as a condition, we could say that all vehicles would be transported through Odessa trucks only and during regular business hours?
I'd be reluctant to say address the trucks only because if they don't have the trucks, they hire companies to transport, but it's still under their control.
So we could find wording that would appeal to that language?
Yeah.
Okay. And you said the cars sit there for about a 2-week period?
And that's what we're anticipating. If for some reason the auction isn't held, they'd have to sit there longer, but, you know, Odessa doesn't make money if the cars are sitting around, so the operation typically is within a 2-week period.
Okay, so the cars would have to move on site and then they would have to move back off site, right? They'd have to move on site to be stored and then they'd have to move off site in order to be auctioned.
Yep.
But no dealers would be viewing vehicles on Lowland Street.
No.
And there wouldn't be then washing of cars or anything like that on Lowland Street.
Nope.
Okay. Jason, I think I'm good for now.
Again, I'm sorry. I thought you were done before.
That's okay.
I had a feeling there was more.
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome. I have these, you know, sixth sense about these things. So the security guard, what if there's a car alarm in the middle of the night? The wind's blowing and we're getting some pretty good winds and you've got what, 100 something. How many cars are being stored there?
In the range of 600. If it's
600.
It lays out for 600, whether it ever gets to that full amount, but that's the number that is basically shown on the plan because that's the usable area of the site.
So we have some pretty good winds. I would assume that 1 out of the 600 maybe will sound off the alarm. Does the security guard have the keys to all of them to quickly mute the thing?
I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know why an alarm would go off. It's a car just sitting there. Nobody's around it and doing anything. I don't know. Jack Ness from Odessa was supposed to be on the call. He may be able to answer that. If he didn't make the call, I'll get an answer to that before your next meeting.
I got a buddy whose uncle works at Odessa. He said that all the cars have the keys in them right there.
Oh, well, Josh.
That's good
Josh,
security, Josh.
Yeah, Josh, that would explain why there's a security guard.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Yeah.
My name is Jack Ness. I am on the call.
Oh, nice. Is that true? Am I right or
No,
wrong?
this is Jack Ness.
No, I know that,
Jeff.
but am I right or wrong about the keys are in the cars, correct?
The keys will be, with the guy will have access to all keys on the lot.
Yeah, you're not going to say they're in the cars. They're in the cars.
Okay.
All right, my.
Can you clarify your name, Jack?
Yes, my name
Why
is
am I
Jack
talking
Ness.
by
I'm the
phone?
general manager.
Okay.
So I have a question. So to go off of Jason, so let's say that the wind is blowing and the car starts to go off and the keys are with the guard. How does he match up the keys to 600 cars?
Well, let's put it this way. The Desa, as I said, has been operating that site with thousands of cars at their facility in Framingham, and that has not happened in 25 years.
So we
So,
can probably assume what Josh is saying is right. It would make us feel better, actually.
So I guess
I'm
that's
sorry,
a very
okay.
good question.
Yes.
So, so Jeff, is that your name, the representative from Odessa?
Jack.
Jack.
Jack Ness.
Okay, Jack.
Yes.
That's my son's name. All right. So
Yeah, you're
So Jack, Jack, actually, I think that's a great question. I'm just more curious. How in the world do you keep all the keys straight?
We have different ways. Some of them are the vehicles are keyed. Other times, if they are going to be sitting there for 2 weeks or longer, they're keyed by rows and envelopes, and everything has a stock number. So the keys are broken down by groups.
Jack is the general manager of the Framingham facility.
Must be a rich man.
Is there any I didn't see anything in here, the snow. Where are you going to put the snow in the wintertime for plowing?
Good question. Do you plan on plowing?
A couple of things would happen. One, it's doubtful that during winter conditions, again, the entire facility would be used. So we would use areas where we wouldn't have cars stored. If it was the case where it was full, then we would truck off site.
You would truck off, okay, so it wouldn't be dumped anywhere around, it would be trucked off site, okay, with a loader or something like that, okay?
We anticipate, a condition in the Conservation Commission order of conditions that, storage in certain areas beyond the berm, but
Who's recording?
They berm around the parking lot.
Okay. Is there any?
The other question I had was for Brian, your civil engineer. You had talked about the stormwater catch basins. Are those going to be something like a storm scepter where it's an oil water separator?
We have the deep sump hooded catch basins throughout the parking lot, which essentially act like a oil separator on there, and then that will then flow into another manhole that has it's called a barracuda. It's just a hydrodynamic separator. So there's that, and then that goes into the underground system. So there's actually two treatment methods before it enters into the underground system. And then on that underground system, there's a control structure that controls the flow. So there's 2 or 3 ways that it's treated and held back before it would be discharged.
Is there any, I noticed driving by your other facility over there, this question is for any one of you. I noticed that there's solar panels have been put up there over the building or over the cars. Is there any thought down the road for this facility to have solar panels or, roofs put on with panels on them?
Not at this point, because those panels were from a company that came in. They weren't per se a Desa. It would not surprise me that the company sees this and may come forward to us, at which point in time we'll go through the necessary permitting. Okay. Desa's plan at this point.
Get the feedback on the mic, dude.
Okay.
Can you move your phone away from that real quick?
Somebody's eating the mic.
Yeah, okay. Just saw it because I went by the other facility to take a look and I saw the large panels and I thought, I guess it was a little bit in regards to the snow because I'm assuming that deals with some of the snow, but I just thought it was an interesting question. But at this point, that's not in the, you're not talking about that. So did you have any questions?
I did, but I forgot.
Okay, all right.
Hey, Dave.
Dave? Yeah, Karen. Yes.
Could we just announce to the audience what we talked about with the chat because people are using it and maybe we should remind them of what we talked about earlier?
Well, we talked about, there was I guess another meeting that there was a chat. People were chatting and typing things in. And for purposes of here, we'd like to have people speak. And once we're done with all the board members, we'll open it up to have people speak. I guess there was some confusion at a previous meeting, not planning board, but another meeting. And so we'd like people to just be able to ask the questions because apparently it was confusing to some people. So yeah, we will open it up in a minute. And again, I've got to read a statement too if somebody's on the phone. But I just want to make sure that everybody has had their questions in terms of board members answered. Oh,
I remember my question. I have a question. What do you, off the get-go, how many cars do you plan on having in there? Do you have any idea?
In this parking lot?
Yeah, say gets approved and everything, just entertain me, how many are going directly in there?
There's a layout for 620 spaces. So that could be what's up if other facilities become a problem and there's that need for it.
So that could happen literally within the first couple months? They could be full?
Maybe Jack can answer that. I wouldn't think it would be the first couple of months, but, years from now, it could be.
Oh, all right. Well, years from now is a different story. I was just asking, maybe off the rip, you guys are just going to throw 600 cars in there, and then we'd have to talk about snow truck traffic, which would be trucks that you don't control. That's all. That's where my mind is going. But if you're talking years from now, then not really too concerned.
Jack, do you have a better answer than that? I want to make sure the board understands timing.
Okay.
No worries.
I'll confirm that with you for your next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any traffic flow in terms of the 18-wheelers coming in, and then they'll go out and pick up the cars or unload them? They're just coming in one side, and they're driving around this whole outside, or is there a pattern for the truck traffic?
Yeah, what they will do, again, they would come in, pull up to as you can see from the plan, the area where the guard shack, check in with the guard. And then the truck, the aisles are wide enough, of course, for trucks to traverse all the way through. So once checked in, the truck would then proceed to an area of available slots. So everything would be conducted interior to the site.
Okay. So they wouldn't be loading on Lowland Street or offloading cars? Okay.
No.
It's all, looks like the front here it looks like proposed heavy-duty asphalt pavement. So I'm assuming that's the area where they'll be loading and offloading cars off of the car trailers in that front facility there and bringing the cars up. So there could possibly be 2 of them at a time, or you had mentioned up here.
The drive aisles are wide enough for everything to happen interior to the site.
Okay. So could be, you'd mentioned 8 to 10 trucks a day. That could be possibly a couple, could be 4 at one time, or it all depends on, I guess. It could be 4 or it could be 1 at a time. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It could be. I doubt that would happen. But again, there's more than enough room to put a lot more than 8 trucks, even if they showed up at the same time out there.
Excellent.
Okay. Okay. And again, I guess I think Karen had mentioned that our concern is this the truck traffic going down and coming down through Woodland and over through Fisk and different places. I know that they'd mostly be coming out Western Ave, down 16, my assumption is, and then turning in to the main entrance of the industrial park and coming up in that way. Because it's really tough to get an 18-wheeler to turn out of Lowland on a Woodland either way. But my assumption is that they're going back and forth just over to Western Ave.
Yep.
So that
well,
would
just
be their
over
natural
Odessa.
pattern.
We're looking at another site, to be honest with you, as well as on Route 126 in Framingham. We may take cars in there, so there may be cars that get taken in there and then come to this site. So, they would be getting out to Route 16, either then going right to Western Avenue or left down to 126. But using the industrial park layout to get to 16. There had been a comment, I know we weren't using chats, but there had been a comment in the nature of barbed wire on the fencing. Yes, there would be. But again, the fencing is below the height of the berm.
So with your last statement, it sounds like traffic is a little more complicated than, or could be more complicated than what initially we're talking about, right? Now we're talking about accessing different sites. So I guess I'm wondering about a couple of different things. I guess I'm wondering about if we should be doing or thinking about some kind of a traffic study or a traffic flow pattern. And I'm also concerned where we went back to that conversation earlier where Jason was asking questions about alarms. I can't imagine that it's a quiet endeavor taking cars off car carriers. And I'm wondering if we should be also studying what impact that might have as well. I think the board knows that we have been having interesting permitting conversations with a lot of other companies, and we've started to really think about overall how these flows are going to happen and going in with a lot more knowledge before we start getting into a permitting process, so we know what we have in front of us. How does the board feel about these kinds of things?
I'm sorry we missed you for a few minutes. We were cut off, so we couldn't hear the last part of that conversation. But
we caught the last part. We didn't hear the.
Yeah,
we didn't hear the meat.
We didn't hear.
But from the last part,
we're back.
From the last part, I would definitely agree 100%.
Yeah.
However, I don't want to pay for it. I want the applicant to pay for it.
Right on, Josh. I agree.
Yeah, we're broke over here. We don't have money for that. So as long as the applicant's down to pay for it, 100%. And then whatever you said before was probably right. Keep it real.
To be honest with you, I mean, we're talking about the use of the site again with the trucks using the required truck route to and from the site, which is out to the numbered highway. Beyond that, you know, it's a numbered highway. It is what it is. We're talking roughly the 8 to 10 trucks during the course of the day. I would suggest to you that this site was developed with manufacturing and other thing. You'd probably see those numbers, plus you'd see employees coming and going. So I think that the vehicle trips to and from the site, this is probably the least from that. Again, conditions in the nature of using the approved truck route to the state highway is an appropriate, at least in my mind, condition. I don't know whether traffic consultant's going to tell you otherwise. He can't tell you that you can't make industrial use site of in the industrial park and not use the industrial truck.
No, but it would allow us to take a look at the intersections and the timing of lights and things like that that make the traffic flow better for town. It would just give us that level of opportunity to know how this is going to be playing out in an area that does have a lot of traffic.
Right, but that's an existing condition industrial park. The trucks traverse, and there are trucking companies on that site. You know, so I don't think you're going to do anything, and certainly we're not going to be in a position to improve the state highway for access out there. I mean, it's nothing that the board can require beyond the permit of our boundaries in any event.
Okay.
All right,
Karen, did you have any more questions?
And where did we stand on discussing sound?
Well, that's what I was talking about. I thought that's what I was saying for like assessments, like an acoustic analysis, something like that, paid for by the applicant. That's what I was saying, paid for. I don't know about what Peter Barber was just talking about. Mr. Barber was talking about, but.
When Peter talked about the fact that from Lowland Street, not only would they be accessing the site in Framingham on the far end of Western Avenue, he also said that they were looking for an additional parking space on 126 so that some things would be coming down 126 and then on 16 and then into the industrial park. And I said that since the traffic sounded like it was becoming a little bit more complicated, we might want to take a look at a traffic study to see how these trucks would be moving in and out and what impact they would be having on those intersections. But Mr. Barbieri said that it didn't seem like they're interested in doing that, if I understand that correctly.
Well, I'm not necessarily too, if they're coming from Sherburne, that's just that, I'm not necessarily too worried about that.
You also said 126 in Framingham, a different site. So there'd be two sites.
Are we talking about we're not talking about Jeffrey Ave, right?
No, we were talking about the carriers coming through the town, right? If they're coming down 126, then they're coming from somewhere other than Western Avenue. And, as a board, we did vote on and support complete streets. And I think that us taking a look at that and making sure that all of this can be handled is probably part of our due diligence when we're discussing these kinds of things. We did discuss that back in, was that December, and it got approved in January?
Hey, this is Jack Nishka. I was wondering if I could clarify one thing. On the other parcel that Peter had mentioned, that would be considered an overflow too. There would not be vehicles going back and forth between those two parcels. The main thing would be is a direct into Holliston, and then from Holliston to the auction. That would be the plan, or possibly from the auction back to Holliston. And that other piece of property would be handled separately, again, just as an overflow, because we really wouldn't have anything going from overflow to overflow, if that helps.
I thought they were coming.
Okay, so they would be coming from those two separate sites, only from your main site on Western Ave.
Why can't they just use?
That's correct, from the main site, or possibly a direct drop to there from a highway.
Okay.
All right, so that's different than what we heard too. So I just want to be clear. I want to know what we're talking about. Could you please?
No problem.
Could you say that again? Because I believe that Peter said that there would not be direct drop-offs from the highway, and I believe that Scott asked that question directly.
No, I think the question was if there would be sight from the 126 coming out to Holliston too, from that other piece of property that was mentioned, the other overflow lot. And
Correct.
Those two would not be going back and forth between those two.
Early on in the presentation, there was a question asked about whether or not car carriers would be coming directly from the highway to the Lowland Street site, and we were told no, that would not be happening. The cars would go to Framingham, and then using Odessa vehicles, either ones specifically owned by or contracted through, would then have cars be brought to the Lowland site. And we were told that that's how that would happen. So my question is, will cars be coming from elsewhere or only from Framingham?
It's a possibility they could be coming from elsewhere, which again would be under our control because we would be directing.
Can you tell me what is the region that you service? You're pretty big. You have a lot of auctions all over the United States. How far do these trucks come?
Probably the majority of them is farthest is probably, I would say, New York, up north, New England states, possibly Connecticut. That would be the majority.
Okay, so if you say that a truck is on its way to the Lowland site, and let's say the Lowland site hours are, for discussion, they close at 5. Well, what if a truck has a problem on the road and it becomes delayed? Then what happens? Like all of a sudden now it's delayed by a couple of hours. Now
That's up to the truck because we shut the gates. We do not accept vehicles after our hours.
But what would stop them from hanging out in some other town somewhere? So like, what is your advice to a driver when that happens?
Usually that something like that won't reach us when we contract somebody. Tell them, listen, these are the hours of drop off, and that's it. It's Monday through Friday. I believe it's 8 to 5.
Okay. Thank you.
So whatever a truck does, oh, no, no problem at all. And, if you have any questions, don't hesitate.
8 to 5, okay. Not on the weekends.
I'm sorry, did I mute myself or can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, not on the weekends.
Okay, so 8 to 5 on Monday through Friday, okay. So this
That's correct.
facility, this parking area would not be operated on the weekend? Okay.
No.
Okay.
And sir, which days do you hold auctions?
We have one every Friday, which is our regular one. And then every other Tuesday, we have a smaller, it's a Ford Motor Company auction, which is a smaller scale, maybe 200 vehicles.
How big is the one on Friday?
We run approximately, it could be anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000.
And then when do they get picked up?
You mean to be taken out?
Yeah.
We have daytime hours to be picked up and taken out.
So on a Friday, would they get picked up like the next Monday?
On Friday, well, we do allow them to pick up Saturday until 4 o'clock, I believe, on Saturday. No Sundays. And then during the week, it's 6 o'clock.
And again, to be clear, those pickups are from the Framingham site. Those aren't.
That's correct, yes.
Right, because there'd be
Once a car is sold, it does not come back to Holliston. It gets picked up in Framingham and taken to whoever bought it.
You cross one of the.
So Holliston is specifically for storage only.
Mm-hmm.
Overflow. What we hope to be able to do is just use that for an overflow. Hopefully it's never full. The idea is to keep everything moving in the Framingham facility.
So there may be times where there's really nothing there.
There could be times where there's nothing there, or there could be some times when a vehicle might have to be held for an extended amount of time where it just wouldn't move at all.
So just to be clear, there'll be no truck traffic on the weekends, Saturday, Sunday, whatsoever.
That's correct.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Scott, was there anything else?
Scott Ferkler, not Scott Moles.
Oh, Scott Ferkler,
No,
I'm sorry.
no, I think that's it.
All right.
On the call, he does have a comment.
And I hear Scott Moles is on the call, and he has a comment.
Speak. Should we have to open it up to the public?
I will just Scott for the town.
He's not the public.
Hi, Scott.
Yes.
How you doing? Good evening. Scott Moles from the Holliston Board of Health. Just some comments as it relates to the security booth. I think the security booth should have a working bathroom for at least a minimum size of a couple 100 gallons a day with a septic tank. In that security booth, some things I would like to see made available also is at least some type of spill kit maintained, in case something does happen for a vehicle, that they can put, a boom around a car that's leaking oil or a truck that has a leaking oil. I know they got the Barracuda oil water separators, but if we can have an emergency spill kit on site there where it can be accessed quickly by the guard, even if it's put down in a quick manner, would be helpful. And then making sure the guard has the emergency contact to the fire department and who would be our contact in case there is a spill within the property itself. But again, priority on the security booth. I think at least a small Title V facility with a septic tank can be put on the property and with the leaching area placed in a manner that's away from the leaching of the parking lot itself. So that's kind of my first purpose. And then the one other thing that you noted that heavy duty pavement is being used at one part of the the parking lot, I think the board should, the planning board should consider heavy-duty pavement or make sure that there's heavy-duty pavement between these two entrances at minimum. So, you know, the main turning of these trucks are gonna be between these two entrances. You know, maybe just a simple compaction test. Make sure you got good gravel under Lowland Street to handle the extra trucks. I know they're not all going to be Odessa trucks, but if you're going to be putting heavy duty pavement down at within the facility, a couple 100 feet of pavement on Lowland Street, just to make sure that you're not going to be rutting Lowland Street in and can say, hey, it's not caused by us type scenario. So those are kind of my comments, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moles.
All right. I believe we also have Select Board Member Tina Hine that wanted to say a few words.
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is Tina Hine from the Select Board, 142 Union Street in Holliston as well. I just wanted to first speak to the board, and then if I could speak to Peter and Jack briefly. To the board, I'd just like to remind, as Karen mentioned before, the letter from your board on December 5th showing support for the Complete Streets policy and the commitment that the planning board made to ensuring consistency with the Complete Streets policy. To that end, I just want to read a quick sentence out of the policy in which decision makers are directed to consistently plan, design, and construct streets to accommodate all anticipated users, including but not limited to pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, emergency vehicles, and freight and commercial vehicles. And specifically here, I want to call out or point out that the corridor that Lowland Industrial Park abuts and also crosses Lowland Street down at the trail has, again, the trail and then the safe routes to school for 3 schools, 1 middle school and 2 elementary schools. So that calls for I believe, special attention in the board's consideration of the traffic flow in and out of the park. I will point out that there's no doubt that this is a site improvement. And so it's great that Odessa has shown the interest in the site. And I wanted to recognize that, but wanted to speak to the board again about the Complete Streets policy and ask that you do consider that the fact that the trail abuts the park and that the safe routes to school to these 3 elementary and middle schools is in this corridor that we're talking about, and that there will be traffic flow implications unless steps are taken to direct all traffic from this site, from this Odessa site out through the Whitney Street intersection. And so then to Peter and Jack, if I may, I would just like to point out a couple of things. We have a September 2019 traffic study through downtown Holliston, so a little bit away from where we're talking about geographically, but very much still the same area, and this is still Route 16. We have during peak hours 11% of the traffic being heavy trucks. And during peak hours, we're talking about 50 plus trucks that are on Route 16 traveling through downtown. Again, not exactly where we're talking about, but in the vicinity. So when you're talking about 8 to 10 round trips a day, that's a significant volume in comparison to what we see during peak hours. I know you can't guarantee the hours that they're coming in and out, but I do think it's significant that you're talking about 8 to 10 round trips a day. I won't share my screen, but I would encourage people to just look at the size of a 3 to 4 vehicle or up to a 9 vehicle carrier. These are large trucks. So given these concerns, I would like to ask for consideration for a traffic study. We know that taking a left onto Whitney coming from the direction of Western Ave is difficult. We know that for a big truck, that's a long turn, and we know that traffic is heavy at that intersection. We also know that taking a left onto Route 16 out of Whitney Street is very difficult for these trucks. And we know that when trucks face these difficulties, they often seek alternate routes. And what they have tended to do, and this is just in general, nothing specific, is they have tended to use Woodland Street because there's an intersection there, a signalized intersection, Woodland Street with Washington or 16, and that gives them that easier access. So I support the idea of a traffic study to understand the implication of these 8 to 10 round trips of these heavy trucks and what that will mean at that Whitney Street intersection. I'd also ask for mitigation considerations. One type of mitigation would be support or assistance in seeking a truck exclusion with Mass DOT on Woodland Street. I think we can be creative in how that would happen, what that would look like, but I certainly think that one form of mitigation, again, could be assisting the town in seeking that truck exclusion. That would make it less likely that Odessa would have to actually enforce the route of their trucks, because I believe that truckers who drive these vehicles, they know the truck exclusions, they know where they exist, and I think even their GPS directs them away from truck exclusions. So it kind of lessens the need for enforcement by Odessa. That's all I have to say. If anyone has questions, feel free to ask me, but I'll go ahead and mute myself and just listen to the comments that follow. And thank you, David, for letting me speak.
Oh, thank you. All right. I didn't know if any other board member or Peter, if you wanted to, or if you wanted to address Tina or Scott Moles for that matter, or Jack did.
Yeah. I mean, given in mind that we need your approval first, we haven't gone into great detail on the nature of the septic, but this is a sand and gravel site, so if we've got to do anything in the nature of anything on site, we can do it. But between now and your next meeting, we can have Brian communicate with Scott and, provide details of, drainage and septic as well, get a better idea of that all. And you'll also have your comments from your consultant that, that you folks hired, and we'll have to address anything that they come up with.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions, concerns, comments from board members before we open it up to the public? Karen?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, Scott Moles did bring up some really important points, and I would be very inclined to support him on those statements. And I feel that Tina Hine brought up some things as well that we were talking around about. Her providing numbers and percentages, I think, is really important for us to discuss. And I just reflect back on, 555 Hoppenbrook, and they were really on board with helping us out and being a partner with us with the complete streets and with a traffic study in order to be able to improve that intersection. And we're partners with us on that. And I think that, it is really important that Whitney Street be very safe for these trucks to be able to come both in and out of the industrial park. And I get concerned when that intersection is not safe for them, that what we actually do is impede the opportunity for the industrial park to be as effective as it can be for our business people there. And I think that it would be prudent of us to pursue this so that we can have the safest opportunity for our businesses to be able to operate where they need to operate and stay within the industrial roads.
Thank you, Karen. Scott, did you have anything? Scott Ferkler?
I think I'm good at this time. I think the questions I had have been answered.
Okay. Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely like to thank Tina for the statements that she made. She brings up a few very, very good points. Karen Langdon did mention them, and then Tina mentioned how we are trying to adhere to the complete streets vision that we supported in September, and so I would absolutely agree with everything Tina mentioned. I would be curious to know what a traffic study does show. Of course, the goal is to, as the complete streets vision is, to make sure that our roadways are safe for everyone, for joggers, for cyclists, for cars. for somebody pushing a baby stroller, for everybody. And so that's the ultimate goal. So yeah, I don't think there's any harm in asking for that if we could.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Josh, did you, okay. Okay. So I think at this point, questions, I think we're going to open it up. I have to read a statement. If there is anybody if you're on a phone, I just have to read a couple statements. If you're calling in by phone and want to make a comment or ask questions, please press 9 so that so we can recognize you. Number 2, when we recognize you, caller ending in, let's say, 5321, whatever the number is, please unmute or press 6 and make your comments. So figure that out. It's going to be, this is new, and I guess this is new to Zoom. So
Maybe read that part one more time.
Star 9, not star 6. I guess I need to put my glass on. Star 9, okay. Sorry. All right, okay. I should probably put my glass on, but we'll get through it. But I guess the best way to do this is to, if there is somebody that I'm looking here, if somebody would like to raise their hand, and then I'll try and call on people. We can't, okay. Leslie, I see. Leslie.
You don't.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Leslie Negri. I live at 79 Northway Street. And I had a couple of questions and comments. Should I start with questions?
Yes.
Great. Mr. Barbera, you mentioned that there could be up to 8 to 10 trucks a day at this site. How long does it take for one truck to get all of their cars off of a 18-wheeler? Let's say if it's full.
How long does it take the truck to get out of the facility?
How long does it take for the truck to unload all of the cars at the site?
Jack, how long would it take, let's say, an 8 truck carrier to unload?
For the worst, I would probably say between an hour, maybe an hour and a half.
Okay. So between, let's say, 8 to 10 trucks, each truck is an hour and a half to unload those cars.
That's the largest truck. They would not all be 8 to 10. Some of them could be 2 to 4. So it would range from a half an hour to an hour and a half.
A half hour to an hour and a half. Okay, thank you. My next question is in regards to traffic flow. Well, my question regarding how long that takes is, I live on Maryland Northway, which goes right into Maryland Street, which will be right behind the property. We often hear trucks, the dump trucks from the site right across from where you would like to set up, and we hear it all day long. And so I'm really concerned about the noise that Odessa is going to create for our community that is right behind your property. We're not abutters, but we hear it. So the noise is definitely a concern for me. The lights that are going to be on, did you say that the lights will be on 24/7 at the property?
There will be security lights night, yes.
Okay, and that will range.
There's a lighting plan that was submitted, part of the package, and part of the town's requirement is that what's called foot candles, which is the lighting cannot extend beyond the boundaries of the property, and we are well within the boundaries of the property.
Okay, so that wouldn't cause like any. Okay, I'll have to look at that again. Thank you. I'm really concerned about the traffic flow. My family, I have 3 young kids, and since we've been home, we bike a lot down Lowland Street to access the rail trail, as well as to access school. We've been really looking forward to being able to continue that. Lowland Street is a mess with the amount of dump trucks that are there across from your property, and I'm really concerned about, there's no sidewalks there. There's no sidewalks on Fisk. We cannot take Fisk to Central Street with my 3 young kids. And just to kind of piggyback on what Mrs. Hine was mentioning, we want to ride our bikes to school. We want to ride our bikes to karate. That's right around the corner from your site. And I envision that to be really difficult with the 18 that are there. I cannot imagine an 18-wheeler making a left at a Jeffrey onto Lowland. So I highly suggest and highly recommend that traffic study to be done. We've seen a lot of trucks come and go over the last couple of weeks and even over the past year. And it's really hard for my family to get through that one spot. And I'm concerned with those trucks and the visibility and the narrowness of the road as well. I'm concerned about those dump trucks as well as the 18-wheelers being on that small strip and trying to access even by car just to get through Lowland Street, but also us being on our bikes and trying to catch up to the rail trail. So those are my main concerns: the traffic flow, the noise that's going to create for the community that lives right behind this area, that we already hear the dump trucks from the property across the street, being able to bike and access the rail trail for my family of 5. I'm so excited that this lot would be cleaned up. It is such an eyesore and an embarrassment to like have people come to my house and see it, but barbed wire doesn't make me really excited. I'm just looking at my notes. Sorry, I was trying to go through everything really fast. So the noise, the light, the traffic. So I'm not opposed for this going in because of our Maryland Northway neighborhood, as well as other families that live around the area trying to access the rail trail. I'm really concerned about the traffic that the trucks will bring in and the noise that's going to cause like our community that we'll be hearing all day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leslie.
Thanks.
All right. Mr. Smith?
Unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself and just state your name and your address.
My name's Robert Smith, 60 Maryland Street. I guess I am in a butter. That property's been a problem ever since we moved in here back in 1971 when Holliston Sand was there. And certainly this is probably the best plan possible, okay, that I've heard for the use of that property and keep cleaning the area up. Right now, if you go down Lowland Street, it is a complete embarrassment, all right? And I wish there was a board, starting with the select board, all the way down to the zoning board, the planning board, and even the building inspector, all right, that would do something to put Mr. Blummer out of business, because he promised the world and he's done nothing in all these years. Okay, now you have a company the size of Odessa, a reputable company, all right, that's going to do something and control the trucks. No one seemed to have any other control of trucks. All right. I feel sorry for the neighbors. I feel sorry for the people that live down on the street going toward Woodland Street. All right. There's clearly a marked area in and out of that industrial park. The police should be around to enforce that. Okay. There's trucks going out the other way up to 5th Street. That is complete. And there's a weight. I believe there's a weight limit going over that bridge going up that way. So I think this is a great plan, provided they provide all the information. You had great questions for them as the planning board. I wish you had better questions for Mr. Blumber back when he was seeking permits. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Is there somebody else that has questions or concerns? I don't see anybody else on a camera. If there's somebody.
Steve, there seems to be a Deborah Hurley, I think.
Different types of development.
Yes, I'm Deborah Hurley. Good evening.
Deborah Hurley, okay. How are you? If you could state your name, that'd be great, please.
Who's talking?
Yeah. Again, my name is Deborah Hurley, and thank you for recognizing me. I'd like to raise a number of concerns, if I may. First of all, in the notice...
Deborah, can we have your address?
Yes, I'm on 22 Ward Lane in Sherburne. I live right next to the area. One of the things, the first question I have is, in the notice, the planning board notice, it said 0 and 194 Lowland Street. So I just wanted to clear that up, what that meant, the 0. I wasn't clear about that. Would you like me to give all of my questions before they're answered, or would you like to answer them one by one?
We like them one by one generally, please.
Okay, so that's the first question, just to clear up that. Where is 0 Lowland Street?
So the myth number
Karen?
one, multifamily development.
Where's 0 Lowland Street?
0 Lowland Street, this is actually 2 assessors parcels. One has no frontage, and so it has no street address.
Did you hear that, Miss?
Yes, so is that parcel with no street address connected to 194 Lowland Street, or is it a different location along Lowland Street?
I believe.
No, it's connected to it. It's the rear of it.
Okay, great. Thank you for clearing that up. The second question or concern that I have relates to existing contamination on that site. And I did come into the meeting about 10 minutes late, so I apologize if any of these were already covered. But I wondered about soil analysis or remediation plans for the site.
Well, I do believe that there was soil analysis done a while back, not a while back, but maybe like a year or two ago on the site. And I actually do not remember what the results were. I don't think that they were anything crazy, but we can definitely get that for you right now.
I know there have been issues with the site, so just wondering about what the remediation was that had been done, or was planned to be done before this new use is made of the property.
Did the truck out all this?
Has conducted studies of the site. We'll get you that information, but the reports that we've got are indicative that we can proceed with it. But we'll provide you that information.
Great, thank you so much. The third matter I wanted to raise is with regard to the aquifer that is underneath that whole area. So as most of you will know, that's a special water zone in Holliston, that whole area. And that area, that aquifer that's located there provides, I don't remember off the top of my head the percentage, but I did know it. It provides a significant percentage of Holliston's drinking water. So there are particular protections for that area and a number of restrictions around it. So I just wondered what sort of, how that had been taken into account with regard to this new proposed use.
Interesting question.
I think that they can answer that one.
From a stormwater perspective, the stormwater systems were actually designed with that understanding of being in a zone 2 area. So there's 44% pretreatment that's provided on site, as well as increased water quality volume that's provided in the underground detention systems to meet the state stormwater requirements for being in that level 2 aquifer area.
Right, and so thank you. Holliston had developed a special plan not that long ago, probably about 10 years ago or so, for that particular water source, given its importance to the town of Holliston and the ability to have drinking water. Because as we all know, living in this area, if you don't have drinking water, the value of your property becomes 0 immediately. So there is a special study that's been done for that particular aquifer, so the planning board may want to have a look at that as this process moves forward. The next concern I wanted to raise was with regard to endangered species. We have quite a few of them in this area, and I don't know with regard to this particular property, but what the endangered species are there, and if so, what sort of accommodations are being made for their habitat.
Interesting question.
Again, all the work is taking place in the upland area, so we're satisfying all the requirements in regards to species.
So it's clear that there are no endangered species issues with regard to this property?
Brian, you did the notice of intent. There was nothing indicated in the nature of any special requirements we have to do for the project we're proposing, correct?
Correct. There was nothing that was tripped as far as databases are concerned that we saw.
So just looking on GIS, you didn't see any endangered species layers?
Not in this particular area, no.
Okay. You can also check in with Mass Fish and Wildlife. I'm sure you know, Brian, just to, so one of the things we could ask for is just a letter from Mass Fish and Wildlife just saying, yeah, this property has absolutely no influence on endangered species.
Right, because there have been several designations in near proximity to this property. So, and given that these species roam around, this is something I think worth looking into, and given the number of waterways that abut the property and so forth. There's a lot, that whole area going, down Whitney Street and so forth is a wildlife corridor. So there's a lot of movement of species in general, including endangered species, through that whole area. The next concern that I'd like to raise, and someone did raise this partially, was with regard to snow removal and salting. There was some discussion already that with regard to snow removal, that the plan of Odessa was to truck all snow, and I just want to confirm that's all snow off-site. But salting, the word salting was spoken, but there wasn't a particular answer with regard to salting and what the plan is and how that will be handled. Because again, you have a very significant water source for the town right there.
I don't know if someone wants to answer that, or Brian, or
Jack.
Jack, I'm not sure who's.
Well, I think what Peter had mentioned earlier was that the intent, or maybe Jack had mentioned it, was that they would plow it on site within the limits of the curb line for a normal event, or if there is such a thing as a normal event. If there was additional parking needed or space that was needed and you have a heavy event, then there is a potential they would truck it off site.
Okay, that was my misunderstanding. I thought someone had said earlier that all of it would be trucked off site. So the idea is basically it will be left there, but if there's a severe weather event, then if there's overflow that they just can't put somewhere on the property, then that would be trucked off site. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, this is Jack. I heard, I had to step away for a moment. Did I miss a question?
Jack, there was a question about the snow removal, and I had understood you said earlier that generally it would be plowed on site, but if there was a large event or you needed the space, then you would potentially truck it off site. Kind of both options are there.
Correct.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so then what's correct is, sorry to repeat, but just is that normal snow, it would just be left there, maybe shoveled there or moved there. But then if there's an extreme event, then it would be plowed off site. So then thank you for answering that. And then the question is with regard to salting.
It depends upon the availability of who we contract in a particular year. None of the sites are in Holliston.
But you would be salting the parking lot.
I'm sorry, if it came about probably the rows, that's not going to be a working lot where vehicles are going to be coming and going. It is an overflow, but if there was a dangerous ice situation, yes, we would probably salt the roadways within the vehicles.
Okay. All right, so it seems to me there's an interaction there with this important water source that needs to be examined. My next question relates to impervious surfaces. So, again, as those of us who live in this area know, there's an increase in general in impervious surfaces, just asphalt, basically driveways and so forth. And so then that doesn't allow the water to go into the soil. As you're increasing these impervious surfaces, you get kind of unusual runoff, right? That's water moving in different directions where it didn't move previously. So obviously this is going to take a site and I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like it's going to be paving a site that isn't paved or adding more pavement to a site that maybe is partially paved. I'm just not sure about that. You can tell me. But just there's definitely going to be an increase in impervious surface, which then causes more stormwater runoff. It changes the water flow patterns where that water goes. And again, this is already a very wet area with Dopping Brook and Bogastow Brook and so forth and the various ponds. So, a question of an analysis of that. If you're adding that large 600 car impervious surface, you're definitely changing the water flows in that area. So that's something that seems to me that deserves study.
So we did prepare a stormwater report that details how we're going to collect the stormwater, treat it, and then attempt to infiltrate it with the open bottom underground detention systems. And we also analyzed the pre and post developed flows that were coming from the overflow from those detention systems. We're actually in the 2 and 10-year storm event, we are reducing the amount of flow that's coming off of the site because of the large underground detention systems that we've incorporated into the plan.
Okay, and given climate change, I'd suggest also a 50-year addition to the study, you know, because we're having more extreme weather events. Also, I wondered about the, there was a mention a few times of heavy-duty pavement, and so again, I don't know, I'm not an expert in asphalt, but I was wondering again, because of these concerns of impervious surfaces and the various the many knock-on effects that they bring about, whether there's a differential between regular old asphalt and a heavy-duty pavement.
No, the reference to heavy-duty pavement is just a thicker pavement section that's intended to handle heavier loads on the site. So the materials are the same.
Right, but it's obviously, if it's heavier duty, then there must be either more of it or it's thicker or something. Anyway, I think that's a question that needs some study. The next question I had was with regard to the number of vehicles. I think that's been answered though, is that the maximum is 620, correct?
The master plan layout, potentially what it could be, usually utilize the entire space was 620. That's correct.
Great, thank you. I thought Mr. Barbieri said that eventually. The next question I had was with regard to the lighting, and several people have already spoken to that, but I would underscore the need for a study because there's, you know, definitely a light pollution issue, and it was mentioned this would be a 24/7 light situation. So that's something, you know, I would just second or third or fourth the advice for a study. Similarly, with regard to noise, there already been a number of people who've spoken quite a bit about that, so I will say very little. Again, I support the notion of a study. There will be, you know, large trucks moving through the area, you know, and then, you know, potentially other vehicles and so forth. With regard to traffic, again, many things have already been said about that. I understand now from the continuing discussion that these vehicles will be 18-wheelers. That will be the type of truck that will be moving through here. And then it was mentioned that there'll be 8 to 10 a day, and they take approximately, someone was just saying before, a half hour to an hour and a half to unload, depending on the number of vehicles on them. So just quickly doing the math, that means the whole day, you know, if you're open 8 to 5, trucks will be unloading, right? That adds up to the whole day of that happening. And in terms of the hours of operation, I just want to confirm, because it's been said a few times, but that it would be daytime, but is it decided that it will be Monday 8 to 5? Is that the definite proposal?
Yes.
Thank you. So there will be
I'm sorry, this is Jack Nash, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Nash. I've come to recognize your voice. And there'll be no nights, and you know, it's been said several times, no weekends, but just to specify, there'll be no nights either, correct?
That's correct. And also, you know, I know we've mentioned 8 to 10. That would be at the worst of it. That would be if a facility was absolutely overloaded and we had direct vehicles there. And that would be at the extreme.
Right. Okay. And so thank you. So one of the things I was wondering about as well are the emissions from those vehicles coming and going on a regular basis, basically all day long. Right? There'll be cars or trucks arriving and leaving. So there's the noise issue, the emissions issue. Finally, I'm sure you're wondering when I'll finish, but thank you for your patience so much. Finally, with regard to the routes, I've been listening closely. So there's the Route 16 route, which is coming down Western Avenue from Odessa, taking a right onto Route 16, and then a left onto that main entrance into the industrial park. That's option 1. Option 2, which seemed to float around for a bit, was maybe some vehicles or trucks coming down Route 126, then taking a left onto Route 16 at the intersection near the Bertucci's, and then traveling on that narrow part of Route 16 and taking a right into the industrial park. And then the final thing that was put on the table was the possibility as well that some of these trucks would be coming off the highway. So I'm assuming that means Route 495. And so then they would be traveling up Route 16, I imagine. I'd like some clarification of that. Route 16 through Holliston, and then taking eventually a right onto the main entrance to the industrial park. So I had a question about just that from the highway, you know, just if I'm explaining that correctly, or if I'm understanding correctly, or if you could make explicit what you mean by that. As some others have said, I've witnessed many times the corner of Lowland Street and Jeffrey Street, near where the now Stanley Black & Decker, formerly Lista, is located, trucks trying to pull into that Lista loading dock, and it literally stops traffic. The trucks cannot move through that, and these aren't 18-wheelers. These are just regular old trucks. All traffic stops. Trucks have to, go forward, back up, go forward, back up, angle around, back up, and so forth. And this can go on for minutes while everyone else waits. So it is that intersection. The lady who spoke earlier, I've seen it myself, and it is quite narrow, and the trucks have a difficult time negotiating that turn from Jeffrey Street onto Lowland Street. Thank you again so very much for letting me raise these various concerns, and I look forward to the responses and the studies and learning more about it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah.
I think in the
Carol.
next one was Carol. If you could just state your name and your address, that would be terrific.
Carol Corey, 40 Bullard Street, Holliston, Mass.
Hi, Carol.
Hey, Josh.
How you doing?
35 trucks today, Josh. We just had a 75% increase from Monday. That's how I'm doing. Anyhow, I feel like I'm getting a song and dance from you, Peter. At the beginning of this, we said there was going to be one construction type of shelter that would be there for the guard site. And then later on in your conversation, you mentioned that maybe a few years down the line, there'll be more construction, maybe for the cars like you did in Framingham. And so I would like to know whether or not, are you intending to really make this more industrialized than what you are saying today? Number one. Number two, you said definitely no drop-offs, but now we know from Jack that there will be drop-offs. So there's no control whatsoever as to those direct drop-offs, what route they're going to take. Because what is your definition of highway? Is Route 115 a highway? What is your definition of a highway? Because it's just not 495, obviously. So that means we're going to see more traffic with your vehicles, because I've already seen some vehicles with cars being carted down this road. I've seen 18-wheelers being carted down this road. And when I say 35 trucks, I'm talking dump trucks. I'm not even including the 18-wheelers. So how many vehicles are there going to be that are direct drop-offs? That's what I want to know. And what route, and how are you going to control which route they take in and out of your site?
I think we've tried to explain that the trucks is between that 8 and 10 in the worst case scenario.
No, you're not listening to me, Peter. You're freaking skirting this issue. How many, Jack? Let me talk to Jack. Peter, I don't want to even talk to you. Jack, how many direct drop-offs are there going to be to this site?
As far as direct drop-offs, some of them would come from Odessa. As far as direct drop-offs, it's hard to say. Like I said, this is an overflow lot. The idea is to use it as least amount as possible, because when the vehicles...
That's all nice, and yeah, I understand that. But we know realistically things change, because obviously you wouldn't be looking for another overflow if all the others weren't booked, okay? So let's assume that the worst case is going to happen. This is going to be a 620 lot storage unit where 8 to 10 trucks are driving in there every day. How many direct drop-offs do you currently have going into Sherburne that do not go through Odessa?
I would probably say about maybe 65%.
65% directly to Sherburne without Odessa. Okay. And
Right,
how do
because
you
some of the
control what truck route they take?
Actually, we would control it the same way we control Sherburne now. We would give the transporters that are contracted truck routes to come in.
And is there any guarantee that they follow that? And if they don't follow it, what recourse does the town have?
I think pretty much what we do right now with Sherburne, whereas, as you know, we're on a special permit with Sherburne. So if there's truckers that don't abide by what we do, we suspend them. And the only case where that may not happen, where we wouldn't have control, and I'm going to be honest with you, is if it's an out-of-state trucker that comes in and it's his first time in.
Okay. So what do you define as a highway?
495 Mass Pike, and maybe 128 Route 9.
Okay, so if you're saying they're coming in by highway, then obviously they're gonna have to take other routes to get in because none of those connect to Lowland. So are you saying that they're gonna remain on Route 16 or major routeways, or are they gonna go on back streets?
I would say the majority of them are going to stay on major roadways. And I'm talking the bigger trucks. And like Peter mentioned earlier, these aren't all going to be 18-wheeler trucks.
I understand. I've seen them already coming down my street. They're Ford pickup trucks with trailers attached to them that have 4 or 5 cars on them.
Yes, you're right. It could be that.
Yeah,
it could be
I've seen them.
carriers.
I've already seen them. They're already here. Okay, and your site isn't even built yet.
Calm down.
No, I'm pissed.
I know,
This isn't
Carol, but
your
calm
home.
down, please.
This isn't your street. And I'm going to sue this town if I have to get this thing fixed.
Yes. True.
So
Okay.
right now, I'm already seeing this. Now you say salting. I live next to wetlands. Does the Conservation Committee understand that you're going to be salting? Have they approved that?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think they would because you know what? I can't even salt my driveway. Okay, so I think we need to get the Conservation Committee back in here to discuss your salting plan. All right?
The applications have been filed. We are waiting to start that process.
Okay, then I think it has to be clearly stated to the Conservation Committee, and I will state it for them, or for you to them, that you're planning on salting, because I know they're against it completely. Okay, so we now know that 65% can be drop-offs. We now know that, you're probably going to build other shelters on the property. As far as this complete street policy that the town of Holliston has, well, that's a load of crap. I guess I am at the point now where I want to know exactly how you're going to ensure, I'm talking to the town now, that we're not going to have more trucks on our roadways that are residential areas than what we currently have. Planning board, anybody?
Carol, it's Josh. I mean, the complete street policy is obviously something that we've all just kind of we agreed on, and this is kind of like a new phase, you know what I mean? Like a new sheriff in town. I know obviously you're dealing with more trucks now than even when we spoke on Monday, and that's obviously not okay. Right now, as like a member of the planning board, I can 100% say that we are all 100% committed to the complete street policy, and the fact that trucks are traveling down to civilian roadways is just not acceptable to me. I know it's not acceptable to everyone I sit with on the board. I'm not going to speak for any other boards, but on the planning board, you have 100% backing for the complete street policy, and that's coming directly from me.
Yeah, but Josh, it's still happening, Josh.
I know, but we're working on it.
Changing.
I know.
I've talked to Mr. Cassidy or Chief Cassidy.
It's a huge problem, and this has been a concern for a while. And I think it's a problem on Bulliard, Fisk, Woodland. It's a problem all over. And I think part of the problem too is we now have, everybody has these things called iPhones, and there's Waze, there are all these apps that show you how to get around. And so they don't know whether you're in a truck or not. They just tell you the quickest way to get around. So now we've got people that are driving through areas that they weren't going through before. So I think it's a huge problem. It's certainly a concern. We've talked about it many times on this board, and all the other boards. The select board, I know, has discussed it. Other boards have discussed it. It's a huge problem.
And I would also, not only would I agree with the fact that it is a huge problem, but I would also say that if Odessa does plan on going here, not only will signage be a factor and be not only recommended, but we'll have to guarantee that. But I mean, I want to hear more about the insurance of like, you know, drivers being suspended if they're taking the wrong routes. I don't want to hear, oh, this person's from out of state more than a few times. You know, so we're, you know, this is the new sheriff in town. It's not Reggie Hammond. Okay. That's the only thing I can say is we're, you know, it's blazing saddles. We're back.
Okay, I know that Tina had forwarded you a request that I have regarding the wasteland, and I'm hoping I hear back from someone on that because I do have an attorney, and I do want him to read through those.
Okay, and that, Karen, the town planner will definitely get back to you on that, Carol.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol. There's definitely your.
Oh, I'm fighting this, Josh. I'm not going to sit here and take this. I have a terminal lung disease, and I have to breathe that crap all day long.
I know, Carol. Thank you.
Was there anything else that, before?
Hang on.
Oh, Carol? Oh, I guess she's,
she must hang on.
Oh, okay. I guess next, that we saw in the queue was, Sherry?
Cherry.
Sherry.
Yes.
Sherry, I'm sorry, I apologize. If you could just state your name and your address, I apologize.
Street. I'm a direct.
Sherry, how you doing?
I realized as we listen that with the fences and the 24/7 guards and the barbed wire, we're considering allowing in the middle of residential areas a business that is obviously very attractive to car thieves. But I do have a couple of questions. My own family has lived here with horses for the past 32 years, and this was long before there was commuter traffic or dump trucks and 18-wheelers zipping past our driveway. So I appreciate everyone's observations about the attention to our traffic problem. This little narrow lowland street is seeing a growing quantity of joggers and walkers and horses and cars and dump trucks and big rigs. We are just an accident waiting to happen. The majority of us do seem to be doing our best to stay safe, but there are truckers who get frustrated. Some who have had to wait for horses and two-way traffic to get out of the way have used their Jake brakes or sounded their air horns, which I'm sure you can guess is not safe for those of us on horseback. I hear that we are all acknowledging the traffic is a huge problem, but here we all are considering adding to the problem before we've solved it. But safety and crowded streets aside, almost everyone in the surrounding residences are really concerned about our town's demonstrated difficulty in getting permitted businesses to comply with the conditions of a permit. You've heard several people here tonight air their frustration with this. The question to you all is, what is the town's plan for enforcing the rules should the planning board vote against the neighborhood and approve this proposal? It happens when businesses refuse to comply with violation notices. We've heard that we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but we already have. And we know what's on the other side. No town board has the appetite, and they do not claim the authority to enforce anything. I want to believe that the planning board members take everyone's best interests into consideration when making this decision, but experience has shown us that past members have voted in favor of businesses, and then they've gone home to their beautiful, quiet neighborhoods, leaving East Holliston to suffer from the consequences of their decisions. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Well, I want to state for the record, the planning board is not an enforcement board, or not an enforcement agency. So I just want to clear that out there. We don't have the power to.
That's what every single board says.
No, but there is a board that has the power to enforce. Correct? On the Board of Selectmen? Isn't that an enforcement board? There is a board that has that power. There's a member of it sitting there right now.
So,
Well,
I know that
maybe
might be
somebody
hearing
should
that's
tell
the
them
truth.
that they have that power.
So, Josh, this is Tina Hine from the Select Board. I hear what you're
The board I'm
saying.
reporting to.
And to
Yep.
Cherie's comments, we have multiple times asked for a joint meeting with the planning board to discuss the concerns of the Lowland Industrial Park. We are looking for a comprehensive approach. I agree with Cherie that this gets kicked around a fair amount. We have asked for a joint meeting with the planning board. If you're not aware already, you'll be presented with a date, August 25th. It's a Tuesday. We discussed this on Monday night of this week. We are hoping to have a joint open public meeting with the planning board, with Holliston Police, with the building inspector, and again, open to the public. It does not address Cherie's concerns to date, but moving forward, it should be able to set in place a plan where we can get buy-in from the multiple boards and departments that are involved here.
this is on August 21st?
August 25th is what's being proposed. Of course, there's some flexibility there if we need to be flexible, but it's another request to have a meeting here.
Okay. Cool. Thank you very much.
There's a caller who is not unmuted. Ellen?
Alan, yeah, Alan was the next in the, Alan, would you like to say something?
She has to do this part.
Hi,
You have to
I
do,
figured it
yeah,
out.
start on.
Hi, I live at 101 Maryland Street, and my concerns, my questions, right, I have several questions. I know there's going to be lights at this site. I want to know whether it's going to be like a brightly lit sky that the Maryland Street people will see, or is it going to be a buffer? I don't want to be living next to a parking lot that's going to look like Target retail. I can't read these plans like you guys do, but I want an explanation as to how they plan to make it so that we don't really see it over at Maryland Street.
Brian, I don't.
Yeah, so the lighting plan that was prepared, the poles are 15 feet tall in accordance with town regulations. The foot candles, as Peter mentioned earlier, with the study show that on the property line, there's 0 foot candles generated, which basically means 0 light that's generated at the property line, which again meets town regulations. And then the fixtures are actually what are called cutoff fixtures, which basically mean that the light is intended to be flat at a 90-degree plane. So you may have heard of a dark sky compliant fixture, which basically eliminates or significantly reduces and or eliminates the amount of light that goes up from the fixture itself under the housing. So all of those are, so with the study and that type of fixture is what we've done to meet the requirements.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. My second question is about the threat to wildlife. Back in, I forget when it was, 2013 or 14, Mr. Zima was going to build there, and he decided against it because something about the Heritage Association was protecting the turtles, these specific turtles that were going to prohibit him from building. And I wondered if you're going to be doing the paving, is that going to have to be built up before you pave it to protect the high water table and those animals?
Like we were talking earlier, I'm unaware of any endangered species or protected species here, but as I think Peter mentioned, we can go back and just double check that to make sure we didn't miss anything with that review.
There definitely is. The turtles was an issue for Mr. Zemer when he was trying to build, but I don't know if that's because he was trying to build a building, but I think the same things will happen there because we have the antenna probably going to go up down at 0 Maryland. We're going to have turtles vacating down there. They'll be vacating the other place. So I'm just hoping that it has to go through the Heritage before it gets approved.
Okay.
And another question is, Mr. Moles raised some good questions about the guard having the capability to do oil spills and stuff, is that going to be in his job description? Is it currently in his job description, or are they going to have to redefine that role?
What was that question?
How Scott Moles mentioned that the guard who's going to be there should have, I forget what he called it, but the ability to deal with oil spills and everything. Is that in his current job description, or is that something that's going to have to be redefined too through Odessa?
Whatever permits and approvals and requirements that are issued by the Board of Health for the viewpoint of septic to the guard, typical requirements, and that's posted. So whatever has to be done, it's done. Odessa is the ultimate responsibility as the property owner. But yeah, the facility, whatever is determined to be constructed, would have to be maintained in accordance with the requirements of any permit condition.
Okay, so my final question is, I do think Odessa would do a good job, but it's the enforcement of it that's always been an issue. We've lived over in Maryland Street for over 25 years, and we've spent a lot of meetings going to conservation, then planning, and I hate to say it, it seems like one hand back then didn't know what the other was doing. I'd love to see this collaboration. I'm looking forward to that August 25th meeting, and that's about it. I hope to see some more progress in this end.
Great. Thank you very much, Ellen.
Thank you.
Next, I think we had Sarah.
Hi there. This is Sarah Baroud. I live at 21 Lowland Street. I'm on the Woodland side. So I really appreciate all the comments. I don't think I can say them any better than anyone else has already. We're only in the neighborhood for a year and a half now, so we're just new to all of this, but we're a young family. We appreciate being outside. I think Cherie said it the best, that we would be adding potentially to a problem that we haven't even solved yet. So I'm looking for more solutions before adding to the problem. And just, again, looking for enforcement. You know, what can we do now if we're noticing people not following the designated truck route? That's a question I have for anyone. What can we do as residents? And what could we do if we notice that Odessa is not following the permitting truck route as well? And my second question is, right now, Odessa is seeking the permit just to store vehicles on the property. If that evolves in the future and it becomes more of, you know, there's auctions potentially, or there's anything else going on besides storage, would they have to come back to the board to seek other permits? Thank you.
Yes, they would.
We were anticipating that any approval, should we get one from the board, would be specifically just for the storage, nothing else. So yes, if there was anything else that was proposed, we would have to come back through the whole process, public hearings, the whole deal. But again, that's not our intent, but the town could impose that as a condition that would prohibit that.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for your questions. I didn't know if you had any more questions, or is that?
Dave, could I just respond to Sarah?
Yes, Karen. Yes.
Yeah, so Sarah, under the zoning bylaw, motor vehicle uses in industrial areas. So if it were to become a showroom, it would need a special permit to be a showroom. And I think if it were to become an auction site, that would become a showroom. So it would have to come back to us and ask for and petition for that use. Right now, the petition that we're discussing is specifically under industrial and outdoor uses, outdoor storage. So the permit would be specific to outdoor storage only right now.
Thank you. Yeah, that was really it. Just underscoring what Carol, I think, said really well, and Cherie, just about quality of life and, you know, appreciation of businesses in town, but also appreciation of residents wanting to live, you know, quiet, safe lives in the neighborhoods that surround these businesses. So really appreciate the truck flow in the direction of the industrial park versus the residential. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Next, we have somebody on an iPad. Now, can they be connected right through? It says iPad there. Sorry, I'm looking to the side here. This is where we're looking at your screen here, but.
Hey, how you doing today? I am Harris Schneer from 21 Regal Street. And I just stepped out for a minute, but I was just wondering, where would the truck staging area be for trucks that come through on off hours, if it isn't through that 8 and 5 period? You know, say these trucks aren't coming exactly from that Framingham location, they're coming from elsewhere, and it's 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Where would those trucks end up staying during that time period?
They shouldn't happen, and the guard should send them back, but there would be no parking of vehicles on roadways at any point in time.
Right, and in theory that sounds good, but in real life, I know that I see it all the time. These trucks aren't going to go somewhere else. The truck driver's going to park on the side of the road and jump in the back of the cab and take a nap. So what happens in that scenario?
It won't happen. I don't know what to tell you. The town would have enforcement ability if someone was parked on a roadway on a public way. That's it.
Will there be signage that at least enforces that trucks shouldn't park on the side of the road during that time period? Because, I mean, there's a great chance of this happening. I can't say that it's impossible that it doesn't happen, but
we would have no problem with installation of any signage with hours, whatever.
Okay. Would there be additional signage for direction of traffic for trucks to go as well? It's nice that, you know, there might be some, but newer signs, nice and legible signs that say where the truck routes should be for this area?
Okay. Again, most of them would be Odessa, but what we have done for outside contractors is we give them a map of a truck route, and we could do the same thing for this facility.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we could post that truck route on a sign on the property as well, so they see it when they're leaving.
Great. Thank you for answering the question.
Okay. Was that, did you have any more questions or? I guess we're on to, I guess, the next person, which I believe is, I should have brought my glasses in. I apologize.
It says
looks
Audrey.
Like Audrey. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'm realizing that I need glasses now that I apologize. So,
Hi.
Hi,
Yes.
How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you for letting me speak. I'm Audria Zabatora. I live in Noel Drive, and we are direct abutters to some problematic operations over on Lowland Street. And I would just say that I completely echo the concerns that Cherie has raised regarding enforcement issues. And so I'm deeply concerned about bringing another business in when we have troubles enforcing the current ones that we live next to. I think that the thought of collaborating with other boards is great. I will try to be very optimistic about that. But I'm also concerned because I know that some of these businesses back here have permit conditions that are either non-existent or so vague that there's actually nothing that you can enforce. So bringing in another business on top of these other businesses who are already problematic, and it seems that we can't do anything about, we can't even issue a violation because there isn't a permit condition addressing the issue, I am very concerned. I will, however, be optimistic and look forward to this meeting in August, but I did want to bring that up, that I think that we should be very cognizant of adding to the issues that we are already experiencing in the area. Would you want to ask questions?
Yes. I'm Mike Zabatora, also 31 Noel Drive, and I had a couple questions as well.
This, how many jobs? I mean, obviously, it sounds like there's only going to be one job on the site itself, so it's only going to generate one job for the town of Holliston. What is the estimated tax revenue for the town based on this site?
Question. I do not know that.
Peter, would you know that as an assessor? No.
Peter Barberi, do you know that by chance, or is that something, I don't know?
With the improvements that Odessa would make to the site, would there be an improved tax base?
Are they taxed on the amount of vehicles they hold there? Are those assessed? Is there any way to generate revenue for the town on a 6-acre parcel that could be, enclosed and have a business running in it, which would generate definite revenue?
Hang on one second.
Well, thank you.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Clear.
Oh, he's on the phone. I think he's answering a phone. Peter, or is there somebody else that would like to answer that question?
I'm sorry, did we bore him?
I think we bored him.
I'm not sure if Peter's having technical difficulties.
Too long.
I'm not sure if Peter's having technical difficulties, but I can take that question back to the
Thank you,
team.
Brian.
Fine, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Brian.
All right.
Hello?
Is there any other that you have?
Hello?
Peter.
Okay,
Peter, yes.
let's table that one and we'll move on to the next one if that's okay. Maybe we can get an answer.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Also, this is for Jack from Odessa as well. Jack, will you use any sort of security system, net watch, anything that will watch the vehicles on site that the security guard will be monitoring?
I'm sorry, could you repeat? I missed the first part of that. I apologize.
Absolutely. Will you guys have security cameras on site? Will there be security cameras set up around the lot that the security guard will be monitoring?
Honestly, that hasn't been discussed. Right now, the security guard that would be hired is part of U.S. Securities, which is our overall security company at all our locations. That I don't know at this time.
Okay. I was just curious with the planning board, would they consider making an operation of this size, the amount of noise that it could generate, and put in security cameras that then the town could have access to? If there were complaints from abutting neighbors about operations of trucks coming in late, noise being off, the horn being set off in the middle of the night, snow removal, would Odessa allow us access to that data to enforce and, actually enforce the rules that are in the permit?
I'm sorry, if that was directed to me, it broke up a little bit. I didn't get the whole question.
The question is, if you do put, this is actually for the planning board, would you require security cameras go up on a site like this? Since we're already talking about a lack of ability to enforce issues in this neighborhood and able to monitor it, would they ask and require in the permit security footage was put up for the town that access to that data? Many of the neighbors are very concerned with the lack of enforcement that the town has. Sounds like this may be something, especially when it comes to off hours, nights, weekends. This would be something that would make the neighbors feel a lot more comfortable.
Having security cameras on the property?
Correct.
That's something we can look into.
I also had another question. This area is already heavily burdened by noise, as you've heard from a lot of the abutting neighbors. How long do you think the site, to get the site prepped and ready to move in, how long do you think that's going to take?
I would refer that to our engineering. That I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of variables that will dictate how long that would take. Off the cuff, I would say 3 to 4 months, if I had to guess. since there's no building involved and it's just the paving operation. But there is the underground detention, which will take some time. So please don't hold me to that. Obviously, a lot of factors and variables with the contractor involved, but that's what I would estimate at a minimum.
Okay, thank you, Brian. For the back to the planning board, my concern is you've already heard from a lot of the neighbors around here. Several of you were contacted today about certain operations that were going on. With a couple months of site work happening and usually coming on board on top of the sound that's already not being addressed, what kind of impact do you think this is going to have on the neighborhood? How do we mitigate this? How do you address the neighbors live with this? If this goes on for 4 months while we're already dealing with noise nuisance that is beyond the legal levels.
I couldn't hear that. Unfortunately, we're having a hard time hearing you here. I'm sorry.
He's like shouting.
Sorry, I'm yelling. I'm getting yelled at next to me.
It's sort of some things are coming in, some things aren't. I apologize. I don't know if it's just us in this room, but we can't hear you.
That's fine. I can if you can hear that.
No.
I couldn't hear anything. I don't know if anybody on remote access could hear that. I apologize. We couldn't hear it here.
I don't think anyone can hear it.
Okay.
Could they hear anything?
Thank you, Carol.
No problem.
I don't know.
Encourage them to write in some comments.
Okay.
I'll forward them.
Okay, for the forward. Okay. At this point, we can't. Unfortunately, I don't know if you're still there, but we can't seem to hear that last comment. We apologize. If you wanted to send that in, we'd be glad to forward and answer that question that you had.
Do you want to type in some questions?
Well, we can hear you.
Yep, we can hear you. We can hear that. Yep. We can hear you. Yep.
Okay. What questions?
Yep.
What else? Oh, I guess one of the questions I had was regarding the snow removal. In preparation for the auction, you have 620 cars on site and you need to find the car that you need to bring over to the auction. I don't think we defined a way how we match key to car. Just wondering what that whole scenario looks like. And do you end up doing that in the evenings, or is that supposed to be happening between 8 and 5 also? And then what happens if the snow is, I guess, at night or something? I don't know if that would interfere, and like you can't do it between 8 and 5. What does that mean?
Any keys or any vehicles we find would be during the 8 to 5 hours, Monday through Friday.
And how about the snow removal of the cars? Do you have to remove the snow off is it similar to like a dealership? They have to go and they have to remove all the snow off of all the cars and move all the cars and clear the pavement, and it turns into like an 8-hour fiasco. Is that something that you anticipate at this site as well?
I don't think it's going to snow this winter, so I'm not worried about it. No, I'm only kidding. Snow is one of the things that we hate the most. If it does snow, yes, we do have to clear the cars, but what we usually do is we put them on one side and we just clear that area and then just move them back. There's not going in and out of the gates or anything like that.
All right,
that
thank
answers
you.
the question.
Yeah.
Was that all your questions, or?
Can I just ask a really quick question?
Oh, certainly, Carol.
That's Carol. I'm going to control my temper, but I'm just angry that the selectmen pass it on to the planning board, and the planning board has no authority to enforce. So I feel bad for you guys. But and those who do have power to enforce don't enforce anything in this town. Anyhow, what restrictions do they have for putting up any other construction, car shelters or anything else? Do they have to come back to the board for that? Or can they just, once we give them authority to go ahead and use this land, if they want to put up shelters as they have in Framingham? Do they need to come back for permission to do that, or can they just go ahead and build?
Any changes, they're going to have to come back to our board. Any changes in regards to anything on this site.
Okay.
Karen? Sherman? Yeah. I thought that on this site there was maybe some old permit kind of thing going on or something. Is that not, do I not recall correctly?
Yeah, there was an approved site plan review for this site.
So could they enact that or no?
No, they're coming over the top of all the other permitting.
Okay.
And
So
you would condition, your normal condition is if there are any significant changes that Chris does not deem as sort of a field change and is insignificant, that they would have to return to you. You're talking about the type of solar structures that are over at Stanley Black & Decker. The solar projects probably would trigger their own special permit. Those wouldn't be considered structures like a shed. The solar would be permitted separately. And I think Peter mentioned that it was probably a separate vendor as well.
Right.
Okay.
Can we do like some maybe I don't know,
Karen.
like a summary? Yes, it's Karen. Can we do like a summary here? I feel like a lot was just said. There seems to be a pretty big conversation around some studies. There seems to be conversations around security. And there seems to be a real sticking point, and I'm not really sure that we've answered effectively enforcement. I think all we've said is that we're not an enforcement board. I'm not really sure that the residents are so happy to hear that. So can we be clear to the residents that whatever we permit, if there is a problem, who is responsible for enforcement? It is my recollection that that would be the building inspector. Is that true?
Yeah.
It's not the Board of Selectmen, is it?
No, it's the building inspector.
Right. So everyone on the call, it is the building inspector who does enforcement. So I think we need to be clear about that. And
I think I heard other types of enforcement though. So I don't know if people are inferring police enforcement or signage on roadways type of issues that might indeed be the selectmen.
Right. So as the surveyor of roads, it might be the selectmen that you would call for that, or isn't there an advisory, traffic advisory committee now that you can also source online and put complaints through them? Chris Canny, the building inspector, helps enforce planning board permits. If he issues a violation and the business owner doesn't agree, they have a right to appeal through the Zoning Board of Appeals. So it's a process, just so everybody is clear about this. We seem to have a couple of, I think, sticking points that I think I would like to circle back around to. Jack, we have you on the phone. Peter doesn't seem to be able to really answer this for you, and I understand why. But it seems as though a traffic study is something that is important here. This is the thing that we've heard over and over again. We've heard about the trucks that are coming in. We've heard the routes that you would ideally want them to take. We've heard about congestion at Jeffrey and Lowland. And we've heard that trucks may be coming off of 495. They may be coming from Western Avenue. They might get here after hours, and who knows what they're going to do. They might load up at 6 o'clock at night and not want to drive all the way back to New York at that time. So where are they going to go? I think we have to have some clarity on this. And I do know that there are car carriers parking now in the industrial park. So this does have to be discussed. There is a noise concern. Not only horns, but potentially alarm systems going off, the unloading of vehicles potentially for 8 solid hours in a day. And what does that sound like? I don't know. I don't hang around car carriers, but I can't imagine that it's 100% quiet. I heard that someone had said that there really aren't abutters to the property, but there are on that northern border all the way along. And we haven't discussed any kind of buffer or sound wall or anything like that to protect them. And we have had these conversations when we talk to other businesses that are going to be operating in close proximity to a residential area. So along with other things that are not on the table right now, which is the stormwater study that I believe was not ready for this evening. But I think there are other things to discuss that the town or at least the planning board is alluding to and the residents are asking for. A letter from Mass Fish and Wildlife. One caller talked about turtles. The traffic study, the study about lighting, the salt study, noise, emissions, security cameras. I think these things are important as we enter what I would like to think of as a partnership in our town.
We certainly have to continue this. We can talk to our traffic consultant, have him get through the whole thing, have him, as far as a report, address the complete street policies as well and all the issues that we've heard tonight. Because again, we're going to have to continue it because you don't have your consultant reports anyway. So probably a month from now would give us the opportunity to get him, answers to have him get you answers to those questions.
Okay. Is there any other questions at the moment?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, Leslie?
If a traffic study is done, and forgive me, I'm a little naive to the process. If a traffic study is done, that's done by Odessa, or is that done by the town of Holliston?
We do the traffic study. The town may want somebody to review it, but the applicant would typically do it for the town's review.
And would the town kind of have their own consultant weighing in on it as well, or you just review it?
Well, the town could put together a list of questions that they want to have answered.
Okay.
And then the town would peer review it to make sure that it's got validity to it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, Bob Smith, 60 Maryland Street. That property 5 years ago had nothing but dirt piles and dirt piles, and the not the planning board, but I think the zoning board, it could have been the planning board, demanded that Mr. Brumber get rid of that dirt. Well, all I can see, he moved that dirt to the front of Lowland Street. And if someone thinks that looks really nice for the town, you're out of your mind. Okay, there's an eyesore. And the select board should be ashamed of themselves for allowing that to happen. And as far as the trucks go, I really feel sorry for the neighbors. And if the police were out there enforcing and giving out some tickets, some stiff fines to these drivers, they'd be looking at the signs to make sure that they're going the proper way in and out of that industrial park. And I know, someone said to me once when I moved in here about Holliston sand, okay, and the sand was blowing all over and sandblasted my house, okay? They said, geez, Holliston sand and gravel was there before you moved in. Well, that's not right. And that's not right about the neighbors just moving into down Lowland Street. If there are laws already on the books, then it's up to the select people, all right, to enforce them. The buck stops there. You're not an enforcement board. The zoning board certainly has proven that they're not an enforcement board. We now have a building inspector that has some power, and the selectmen are backing that person up to do something. But this is crazy. We have laws on the books already to protect the residents. Okay, they're just not being followed through. And I think this Odessa plan with modification will at least make that property presentable as a proud of the town of Holliston, as well as making some tax dollars out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Can I follow on to Mr. Smith really quickly? It's Carol Clory again.
Oh, hi, Carol.
I just want to follow up on Bob Smith because I think Bob made a great point, and thank you, Bob, that there are laws. And to follow up on Karen, what you were saying as far as the selectmen have no power, I've been through this triangle of I don't know what you want to call it with the town, but I have contacted the traffic advisory board. I've petitioned the traffic advisory board. I've talked to Chief Cassidy on the advisory board. I've been told to go to my selectmen. I go to the selectmen say to go somewhere else. It's a farce. And I think that the only way out of this is for us residents to take it in our own control. So just so the residents know, if you want to contact me, please do, because I am hiring an environmental attorney to help me with this, because I do have a terminal illness, and this town is going to make me die before I'm already sentenced to die. And I will fight this. And if it's not for me, it's going to be for you people also, because this town will not stand up for what it has the right to stand up for. We have selectmen, we have police, we pay good money for these services. We pay a lot of money for these services, and they do nothing. So I agree with you, Bob. We have rules on the books. We even have this new one. That's the, complete street policy. I mean, you guys put these things together as if there's something, but they're empty without reinforcement. If you're not going to enforce the law, laws are meaningless. And I wish our selectmen will understand that, or the select board would understand that. I wish the police department would understand that. And our traffic advisory, who just says, oh, well, we meet quarterly and we'll take it up on our next meeting. And this is the first time we're hearing about this. So, you guys keep pressing the buck. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to take you on. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol.
Is there anybody else before we, thank you, Karen, for talking, before we continue this hearing, which I guess we need to figure out another date. I see Deborah had a question.
Hi, thank you very much. This is Deborah Hurley again, just for one very quick point, because it came up about expert studies. So there's plenty of precedent in Holliston for the following kind of arrangement. Certainly, there have been a range of different issues mentioned tonight. So Holliston itself, within the town government, has expertise on some of them. Certainly, the applicant may have experts it's already hired or others that it could engage to assist it. But there's certainly plenty of precedent in Holliston for an independent bidding process to engage specific experts, and then those experts are paid for by the applicant.
Okay. Thank you very much. We had looked at a couple dates, which I think the next day we were talking about was September 3rd to continue this public hearing. I don't know if anybody had any thoughts, Karen or Jason or Scott.
Yeah, I think there's
Fine.
a lot to do on the table, so I would be fine with September 3rd.
Okay.
Fine
Does
with
that
me.
work for Scott? Okay. Okay. So,
Peter here?
oh, Peter, did you have something, Peter?
Yeah, the question I have is, we get a lot of things to answer, but I didn't hear anything in nature of either changes to the plans or blow-ups to the plans other than the additional lighting we're to provide you. If the board has any comments or specific comments on issues they have with the physical layout of the plan, if you can give us those now, we can certainly revise the plan as appropriate going forward. Or if there's other comments you want to give maybe to Karen and get to me in regards to specific plants you want on the berm or whatever, we can work those as well.
I do have a couple of questions specifically on the plan, Peter. It looks like a parking lot that's off to the left. I'm not really sure. I see where you have the spaces indicated for the storage of vehicles, but then there seems to be, I'm on page 14 of 23.
What was it? What was that question?
I'm on page 14 of 23.
Okay.
If you look, I see this drawing as to the right is the storage of all the vehicles, but to the left there's this odd shaped, I don't know what that is. What is that?
That's parking. That's parking as well. It's just try to get the circulation there.
So parking for what?
Same for the storage of vehicles. Same thing as on the main.
So that will also be heavily screened then.
Correct.
Right? There'll be screening there.
Correct.
So on the northern border where you do have abutters, and those abutters would be the property closest to you on Lowland Street, and then that would go all the way back to Maryland Drive. Do you have a proposal for mitigating sound and light? Do you have a proposal for doing any sort of buffering along that area? If anyone who's familiar with this industrial park, when it was first put together, there was buffering put between the residents on the Woodland Street side. I don't see any indication of any of that being offered here, and I'm asking if you would consider offering that.
We don't believe you're going to have noise or lighting because of the plan we've got. What we will do is we will get an aerial overview with a big locus and get that so you can see the proximity of any activities, and you'll see that the separation we're keeping between the operation and the edge of the property lines, so you can get an understanding of the buffers that will remain.
Okay, but with all due respect, we have a lot of people tell us what will and won't happen, and unfortunately, things get different when it's part of real life. And I think that that's why, again, we are looking at all the professional studies to make sure that we are clear. I mean, you can hear there is a swell on this call, and there's a swell of residents, I think, feeling as though they are not being heard.
Again, these are 8:30 to 5 o'clock operations, so there's no noise beyond those period of time. We're well within the working hours of the town.
There is light 24/7.
Right, and we've got the polar diagram that'll show you we're not going beyond our property bounds.
So.
Right. I would just add on that northern section of this parking area that was in question here. There is an existing vegetative buffer there that's between 40 to 60 feet wide. We obviously have a 30-foot setback. I think it's 30 feet setback that we have to the property line, and then there is additional. I'm sorry, 20 foot setback to the property line, and then there's some additional vegetation across that property line. So there is existing vegetation there.
And thank you for that. We just went through a whole solar project permitting situation where the solar project did additional buffering in what was already there. We just went through a large building manufacturer who, even though there is buffering already there, they're adding more to make sure that the residents are protected. So sure. I'm asking you if you would consider, when you have your private conversations, if you would consider you know, securing that even more for the residents. I'm just asking you to please consider it the same way we're asking you to please consider how important a traffic study would be. It's important.
I would add on the buffering on the west side, along the frontage of Lowland, I believe there's a 5-foot buffer that's required, and we actually provided a 30-foot buffer along that frontage with the idea of providing that additional buffering there along the frontage. So we can look harder at that north section, just that small area north of that parking, see if we can get a little bit more, see if we can get some more there. We can certainly look at that, but we did provide additional buffering along Lowland for that reason.
Yeah, we'd appreciate you taking another look at that. That's very nice of you. Thank you.
I believe Pat had a question.
Yeah, this is Pat Hafford. I live at 242 Lowland Street. I'm bringing this up because Karen just mentioned it. That north side, that's where the houses are, like ours and the people who live on Maryland Street. You're putting a nice high buffer at Lowland, which is, I don't know, 60, 70 feet lower than our houses. So we're looking down toward the property. And the vegetation that you mentioned looks pretty good right now, but come fall, it's going to go away and the trees are going to lose their leaves. And we're going to be looking down. Your light measurements make perfect sense, except they're going to be lights shining on 600 cars. And we're going to be looking at the reflection off of 600 cars looking down at it. So if you can come up with something where you put one of these nice large 25, 30 foot berms along and plant trees on top of it, that it's going to make a big, big difference to us. Otherwise, we're going to be looking right at this facility. And then the noise. We already have a noise nuisance problem, and several people have mentioned it already. Car carriers are all metal, and so is what they carry. You know, we wake up every morning to the sound of construction, and it goes all day long. So adding more businesses to that area that contribute to that problem doesn't seem to be any kind of an overall street plan, unless the goal is to make it inhabitable. And we were here before the noisemakers moved in, so we didn't see that. We expected industry. We didn't expect the noise level that we have now, and we can't imagine adding to it. And I have to echo everyone who said, we have watched with the other issues at 157 as well as 194 and gone to countless meetings and watched our city boards, our town boards pass the buck from board to board to board, and eventually it ends up with the building inspector. And you guys have got to do better for us. I mean, that's what it comes down to. We're not being represented, and you can hear that from all of us. Now, that doesn't mean that something can't go in there. We expected something to go in there. It is an eyesore, as Mr. Smith mentioned. It's horrible, but we need to do it in a way that takes care of the needs of the neighbors for a change. That's it.
I see Leslie had a question.
Thank you. This is just more of a comment from Mr. Brewer in regards to the proposal for a buffer. And I am just piggyback on what another neighbor just said. We already hear the noise. It's there. It's there from the dump trucks that we hear often operating before hours where they're supposed to be there. So I'm on Northway Street and the Northway Maryland Loop, and we already hear it. So as much as your studies show and the vegetation and everything, we're already hearing the noise, and this property is just going to add to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So I think at this point, Peter, was there anything, you or Brian, did you have any more, anything to add before we continue this public hearing?
Yeah, I think we've got to do that. I don't know what your meeting is a month from now or so, that we can get our traffic people to get some answers. and you should have your report from the consultant back, and if we need to make any changes based upon that, that'll give us time to do that. And then you can consider everything again.
Okay. We were looking at September 3rd, I believe.
Nothing late August?
Unfortunately.
Nothing in a,
No.
I think that's when we were looking at.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Okay.
Thank you. So
All
should
right.
we do a motion to continue
Yep.
the public hearing for Odessa to September 3rd?
Okay. Do I have a second? Scott or Jason?
I'll second. Scott.
Okay, Scott seconding that. All in favor? I guess we'll start with Karen.
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Okay, we've continued that. Thank you, everybody, for participating tonight and all the comments from all the neighbors and Peter and Brian and Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a quick question. Will the board send out a memo to the abutting neighbors about this meeting like you did for this meeting?
No. No, we would want
It'll
you to
be
put it in the calendar.
I'm sorry, somebody was saying something?
I asked the question, I said, are you going to send out a notice to the abutting neighbors like you did for this meeting?
No.
No. It would be a continued public hearing on September 3rd.
So we have to go through your website in order to get the to the link for
Yes, sir.
for the Zoom?
Yes.
Okay.
Or you can just use the original letter. The Zoom meeting will stay the same.
Okay.
Oh, well, okay. Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Was there anything else that we needed to?
I just would like to make a quick reminder to members that the town meeting on Monday night, the stormwater bylaw amendments are on there. And I'm assuming that myself or Sean will sort of be presenting them really quickly. And they are, I think it's Article 20 or 21. Anyway, they're in the package for town meeting. I don't know if any of you are planning to go. It is a planning board bylaw, but it is a general town bylaw. And again, they're just amendments to the bylaw to sort of clean up things under the stormwater management plan. You guys haven't looked at these since, I want to say, December. And I'm a little rusty myself, but I'm trying to come back up to speed. So that bylaw is on. I'm not sure what the anticipation is about discussion about the bylaw, but it's an existing bylaw that's being amended in accordance with, the stormwater management plan, and it was proposed by the town's stormwater consultant. They're not significant changes. They're mostly housekeeping. But just a reminder.
Okay.
Karen, can you
All right.
send us that language? I'm sure you had it at some point, but.
Of the bylaw, so they're printed in the warrant with the strike through of what's existing. So the existing bylaw is there and the new text is bold italic.
Is that on the website, Karen? The warrant?
The warrant is right on the front page of the town's website, yes.
And we'll see the strike through as well as what the new text is?
I'm sorry, Karen?
And we would see the strike through as well as the new text? Is that how it?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. I think other than that, I think we're pretty much, I think we're done.
Dave?
Yes.
On the chat, somehow I ended up getting a private message. Andy, is it Zeska would like an opportunity to talk with us for a minute. He wasn't on when we talked about his bond stuff initially. So do we have just a minute to talk to him?
Can you do that again, I guess? Sure. Okay, all right.
Can you hear me all?
Yes.
Yeah, I was on my cell phone and somehow I couldn't, I heard the whole meeting and I couldn't chime into it. But there was a couple of questions raised.
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. This is for 45 Chestnut Street, Boston Honey Company. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. So other people know.
Right, so everybody knows we're done with Odessa.
Exactly.
Yep, this is something else, 45 Chestnut Street, Boston Honey Company. And this is, if you'd like to chat with us, but we've continued the public hearing for the Odessa. This is something completely separate that we had talked about before, but please feel free to give us an update if you'd like to talk with us.
Yeah, there was a couple of questions regarding our bond, and what our intent is to get a certificate of occupancy, so it will allow us to close on our SBA loan so we can get some funding through the CARES Act. We've had 2 years in construction and we're on our final leg. We're doing pretty much all the remaining site improvement work, and we've had back and forth with the building inspector as well as Karen Sherman in trying to fulfill what we need done and to get this funding that we desperately need through the SBA with the 504 loan program. And Chris and as well as Karen Sherman are asking for that bond. I'm doing the work myself. It's $600 for the bond. It's just one more additional hurdle. We're pretty much in the building right now. I mean, we don't have temporary occupancy. We tried to get it, but there's just been no help from the town, from Chris Canny, going back from May 1st of trying to facilitate a small business such as ourselves in this economic situation we're in right now. We moved out of Lowland Street. We're in here. We're operational. We have no retail. Retail's gone. Our Boston location has been closed for 4 months. So we're just trying to get operational, try to keep our business going and finish the site improvement work and be in compliance with the conditions that you guys set forth probably over 2 years ago. And it's not my full intent to comply other than, item number 4 of the conditions of approval state about the, storage of materials in and outdoors that attract insects. And we're a commercial beekeeping operation. We're in order to fulfill the conditions, I'm never in good conscience gonna be able to sign something that says we're not going to attract honeybees. And so just to have some flexibility on that, and condition number 6, which is the as-built, and it states issuance of certificate of occupancy. So I'm just looking for an amendment, and that's going to be done with the bond, and you guys approve that. So that's fine. It's just, it's really just getting us where we need to be as a business in town to give the final documentation to the Small Business Administration, which is a certificate of occupancy. It's not a temporary certificate, but a certificate of occupancy. Chris Canny came by our shop yesterday. I wasn't here. And it's really, I did reach out to John Cronin from the Select Board and trying to facilitate this. And John asked Chris Canny to facilitate and work to try to get this resolved. And he asked with Karen Sherman to try to come what we need exactly with the bond. And we've had email correspondence on what exactly is needed for the bond, because I'm doing the work myself. I'm not a contractor who's going to leave the town and not have work completed. It's really, we've had enormous problems. I mean, we're over budget, huge. I mean, we're doing all right, but it's just been a killer. And the Sean Reese has been great. He's understood what we've gone through. It's an asphalt apron. We didn't do it because we moved out. We're probably about 800 ton of rock. moved off the site just to finish what we needed to finish. And it's all been logical. And it just needs some consideration of, okay, I'm not going to spend $7,000 for asphalt because we're moving all this rock out and we're just going to lose $7,000 in asphalt. We're going to have to do it over again. So what's really left on the site from, GLM is really everything's on site. I have all the material for the gravel parking lot. The back lot is getting done as we speak. I rented a hammer. I have a guy operating. I operate it. I'm sure we're getting complaints from the noise we're making, and I feel for the people on Lowland Street. We're just getting things done, and we just need to operate a business, and we need to get, we're operating in economic circumstances that all of us have never seen, and there just needs to be some concessions with the town of Holliston and trying to help small businesses survive. I mean, we're down in revenue about $125,000 for the first half of the year. Where we're going to be at the end, I don't know, and it's just it's really $17,000 that's representing a piece of paper, which is a certificate of occupancy that the Small Business Administration needs to get me funded, and I need to get debentured by the end of September, or I lose out. And Chris Canny, it's been delay and communication and a delay, and it's been crazy. And I just want to get it done. A bond to me is that the town does not respect, doesn't believe I'm going to fulfill what the conditions of the approval are. I mean, I've been self-employed for 30 years. I've been a commercial beekeeper for over 20 years. I've invested well over $1 million on 45 Chestnut Street. I have developed a building that is going to be net zero. I have first commercial building in Holliston that is geothermal. I mean, our energy conservation is 50% above the standard. It's a model of construction, and I just need this last leg to get me going. And that's all. That's where I'm at. It's just a real level of frustration. I've lost countless hours of sleep at night over this, and my bees are suffering. So we need to get it done and just, hopefully open up for something.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we definitely voted on that before.
You have.
Yeah.
Yes, we voted on that earlier, yes.
Yeah, it's just the bond is just one other hurdle. And I'm losing every day is a delay, and I'm going to lose now Chris Canny is going to say, oh, I need to have a bond in hand in order to give you a certificate of occupancy. John Croning has been great, and he says, why can't you help him do this? Okay, let's get the bond. Okay, I've talked with Karen Sherman. Okay, I'll get the bond up ahead of, but that's at your own risk. It's just more money. It's $600 to me would be a tote of syrup to feed bees. It's my work. It's really just a final step of say, I'm doing the project. I need that certificate. I'm not gonna not do what I'm doing. I'm already doing it right now. And it's just every single day we delay it. I have a deadline with Bay Colony Development, which is the underwriter for Small Business Administration, that if I don't meet this deadline in the next week, we should have had this done a week ago, that I'm going to lose debenture for September, and then I lose my fund. I lose 6 months of mortgage payments from the Small Business Administration. So to me, that matters. It's about $17,000.
We voted on that earlier.
Yes, I understand that. But what I'm saying is what is the process now? Is Chris Canny going to say, oh, I have to wait, I need to wait in order from the planning board to get a letter to state that they approved the bond? Karen Sherman's going to write a letter to Chris. What's the deadline for that? Is that going to be 48 hours, 72 hours? And then Chris is not going to write me a certificate of occupancy. He's going to say, oh, we'll give you a temporary certificate, but we won't give a permanent certificate. And then I'm back. I just lost what I've been talking about. So I just
emails.
Go on, David. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say an email's been sent already. As we speak here. So in regards to that, so that
So
we approve.
at this point, Chris Canny, tomorrow, which is Friday, I could potentially get a certificate of occupancy. Or does the town need to have a surety bond in hand prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy?
I don't think he's going to give him an occupancy without a bond. He can't waive the bylaw. You can't, the board doesn't have the ability, Andy, to waive the bylaw. What Chris and I offered you was for you to get a bond and then to have the board ratify it after the fact. You chose not to do that, and you're here at the board, so now you've delayed. If you don't have the bond in hand tomorrow, Chris is probably not going to issue you an occupancy.
And Karen, you
call it something else. You're
Karen,
asking him to not do his job, Andy. But regardless of whatever politics you're playing at this point,
I'm not.
The board cannot waive the bylaw. This board has done what it can.
I'm not being political. I have an email from you, and I said I was getting a bond. I called my insurance company. I have the valuations. I've asked for information. What do I need from the town in terms of information that needs to go on the bond? Okay, and then you say, Andy, if you want to post a bond at your own, that's at your own risk. So I said, okay, is the planning board going to increase the amount or what? You stated it's at my own risk. So I said, okay, maybe I should hold back just in case. I would have had this bond all set. It's the lack of communication and help in a small business. I'm not playing politics. I'm not. I've gone through a lot with this town, with Peter Tartikoff, and all this. We've complied. We have spent tons of money in building up a building that is what it needs to be. I'm just looking to facilitate and be done with and just have a guidance of where I need to go. That's all. I'm not trying to be political at all. You know, now it's approved. Now I'll call my insurance company and hopefully we get something going hopefully Tuesday. It has not, the process has not been helpful at all. It hasn't. I mean, the planning board, when I first went there two years ago, you guys were excited about it. And it's been real tough. I mean, with the whole Peter Tartikoff situation and the lack of review of my plan. You know, I've spent over it's like $22,000 in fees to the town. I just want just tell me what I need to do. I'll stop what I'm doing and I'll do it. But when you say, oh, it's at your own risk, okay, well, maybe to me that says maybe the planning board is going to change it and they're going to want a valuation that's more than what we said. So then I don't do it. I held back. That's all I'm saying. If it's clear and concise and we're losing, I know everyone's in a tough situation with COVID and the Zoom thing and communication, you know, it's been difficult, and I'm not trying to be political. I'm not trying to pinprick anyone. I just want some consideration. That's all I'm looking for. You know, and help the business out under some circumstances that everyone's dealing with, and move on and get into business. That's all I'm looking at, you know? But if the email's been sent, I'll get the bond going tomorrow, and maybe I'll get it done by tomorrow. I don't think so. You know, my insurance company has all the numbers. Hopefully we're good. So,
okay.
It's been a tough one.
Definitely, certainly tough times for everybody, and let's hope we get through this. And certainly, I can say for myself that going forward, I'm excited about your operation there. It seems like a nice operation. So, good luck to you on your project.
Thank you much. Like I said, we're on our final. We're doing our best.
Best of luck to you and your operation there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you very much.
Yeah, bye.
And I think other than that, was there anything else that we need to go through, I guess? Okay. So I believe at this point, I don't know, Chris, I don't know where we're on. I don't know how we end that.
I think I just ask for a motion to adjourn.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn the
Motion
meeting?
to adjourn.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All
Jason.
right, all in favor?
Aye.
All, okay,
Aye.
Karen? That was Scott?
Aye.
And
Scott, aye.
Everybody. Aye.
Right.
Shut it down.
thank you very much. Okay, great. Thank you all very much, everybody. Have a good night. Stay
Good
safe.
night. Take care. See you next week.
Thanks very much.